So welcome to the July 13th, 2023 Planning Board. Gloria, may we have a roll call, please?
Chair LaFaro,
Present?
Vice Chair Finity,
Present.
the Secretary is here. Board Member Neely.
Present.
I understand Board Member Catalinato is coming in from vacation, he'll be late. And Board Member Mutu, I believe, is absent. And Board Member Fulham, we assume, is in transit,
Stuck in traffic.
so we have a quorum
Great, great, thank
with all
you.
of that explanation.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gloria, do we have minutes?
We do, June 8 and June 22.
June 8th and 22. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes? Motion by Dennis, second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 4 in favor, 3 absent. So we're gonna go in order here.
I'm actually just gonna, because Jeff's only got a few things and I got the rest of the stuff, so I'm just gonna do my stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah, we'll do yours first, right? Was that Jeff's?
So number 2 is actually George Hastings.
Okay.
Excuse me.
This was a application for a 3-lot subdivision, 2.35 acre parcel, R20 zoning district. It's at Old Riverhead Road in Hampton Bays. So we actually did the approval for this.
Notice that Kate's here.
You okay, Lori?
Yeah.
Want some
just-
water?
She had
I have water.
Oh.
For the record, Board Member Fulham is here.
You made it through the traffic.
Okay. So
ahead.
this one was George Hastings, as I just said. So this was one that we did a 3-lot subdivision approval. 1 lot in the back, 2 lots in the front, 1 for the existing house. We did the approval, we did extensions, and the applicant just submitted this is for the reapproval. So this is actually just for a reapproval of the final subdivision that we've already approved on this one.
What was the date on that, Anthony?
The original approval was
Excuse me.
probably, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and then it was probably extended up until about a year ago.
April
So,
22nd, 2020.
2021.
2020. So, any issues with reapproving? No.
No?
I'll move it.
Moved by Dennis, second by
Second.
Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstentions. Kate, you voting?
I'll abstain just because I wasn't here for the
Okay.
discussion. Thank
Four
you.
in favor, one abstention, two absent.
Number 3 on the agenda is Noyak Northview. This is on a private road, Northview Hills Court, Noyak, CR 80 and CR 200 zoning district. It's a 4-lot subdivision plan. If you look at the aerial I put up here, this goes to show you where the property is in relation to some town open space. I don't know if I put the map up here, did I? Yep, so you'll see that we did a cluster, we're looking at a cluster plan. Go back to the aerial, it's easier to show it up here.
Anthony, can you move the?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. The 4 lots will be clustered basically down here where there's lots on the other side of the road, with the open space up here, a strip of open space along already existing open space here, and some open space down here, so it all connects to the existing open space. This was supported by the Trails Advisory because we got some trails in the area.
Great, what are the ways in and ways out?
Oh, and so the road here, there's a subdivision road here.
Okay.
That comes off of Noyak Road,
Yes.
just south of the deli.
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct. Actually, so this action here was really, which was another area, let me see. Bear with me. Okay, this is the area I wanted to show you. They're in because they have to do a little bit of clearing, to go in for a test well, for the health department application. I just wanted to show you this map. As you could see, there's not a lot of, there's no public water in, here. We got to the north here, some public water, some back here, some over here. So it looks like they're in with the health department for well water. So they're gonna have to get a test well to see if they have potable water there. So they're asking for the ability to do the clearing, which I'll show you the map.
I don't think we discussed whether the fire department would want them to have a county water when we talked about this initially.
Yeah, well, the record, see, what happens is, they have to go into the health department application with a letter of water availability from the Suffolk County Water Authority. The Suffolk County Water Authority typically then tells you, A, you have to bring in public water,
Put in a hydrant.
and put in a hydrant, this, that, and the other thing, or not. So I don't recall, because I'm sure there was something that came out of the fire district or the fire marshal,
Yeah, I don't,
but I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly.
nor I.
Is there a representative
Some-
here?
is some here?
Oh, there you go. Because we had this discussion, because we gotta look at, obviously they gotta have to put in perhaps a cistern or something, obviously. And obviously there's water pressure issues when you're dealing with
Mhm.
that, so.
And that's pretty far back.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
There's gonna be road improvements that are gonna have to be done as part of this, I'm assuming.
And they're in APOD?
Yes.
Oh, the it's
yeah.
it's improved sufficiently then?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Just to show you on this map here, they're showing on what would be lot 1, an area of 1,600 square feet to do the test well.
1,600 square feet.
Yeah, so pretty small, obviously,
And they're coming in from,
from Northview Hills Court.
Wayne, yeah, sorry, I didn't
So
see you there.
Andrew and Shay Marcin's Cabron on behalf of the applicant, Joe Lombardo, our surveyors here actually made the request. As Anthony indicated, this is for the health department. We have a letter from the water authority. It's over 2,500 feet to the nearest terminus of the main. When Northview Hills was approved, which is a town road, there's 2 fire cisterns directly across the street from this area currently. And when, I believe the fire district would find those to satisfy the fire protection requirements for this subdivision. So, in any case, we took the health department's request, and then we looked at the map and tried to locate that where we believe a driveway would be for that one lot. They were looking for it in that vicinity, so we believe, given the turn, and that's where the access to that lot would be, so we're trying to do the minimal clearing to get the rig in to do the test well.
So the
And of course-
resolution, it should be in the packet, I'm hoping it is, but the way I wrote the resolution was to approve the authorization of the 1,600 square feet of clearing for the test well, with a, a condition or something in there that says that this should be utilized or considered to be utilized for the clearing associated with that property for the future development, including the driveway. So I did put that in the resolution.
So lot one gets it charged against them for the well?
Yeah, because it's all on their property, but they could
Well-
utilize that cleared area for the driveway. So in other
Oh,
words, they're allowed a
okay,
certain
okay.
percentage, yeah.
Got it.
Let's, do
And
it.
correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is that we could use that as the water supply well for that lot, if and when,
Correct.
so that test well will be
Okay.
used for that lot.
So there'd be no more
Yeah,
clearing,
and that's
right?
where our driveway to that location will be used, so that they're not going to have more clearing, be penalized for the clearing.
Right.
So,
So Anthony, that's all in your resolution,
Yep,
those words?
I recommended, resolve to approve the clearing associated with the test well, subject to that area being utilized for the clearing for that
Okay,
property.
did you specify the amount of clearing?
Yes.
1,400,
1,600, yep,
1,600?
yep.
Okay, any discussion? Can we have a motion? Motion by Dennis, second by
This is
Tom.
Hastings, right? So,
No, I'm sorry, this is Noyak North,
Noyak,
number 3.
Noyak
I'm
North.
sorry,
Yeah.
okay, so I was looking at the wrong resolution, I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure, it says 3 lot, I was like, there's 4 there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Did
five,
you have a second?
did I have a second?
We have a Tom.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't
Tom.
hear it.
And all in favor,
Aye.
5, and 2 absent.
Number 4, Old Stables at Spionk. I'm still waiting on the engineer to sign off on the, that one had the SWIP and the road plan, so we're just gonna do an extension of the action deadline until July 27th.
Extension to July 27. Okay, motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate, second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
Number 5 is 200 North McGee. This is a 2-lot subdivision. You might recall we had the hearing on this one the same night that we had the best. And there was an issue between the property owner and the adjacent property owner regarding the driveway. Both parties have submitted
Oh,
information.
right,
Yeah,
right,
we-
right.
we
I
saw
mean,
it.
They're
power
still being
insurance.
reviewed by the attorney, but what I
Okay.
wanted to do was to at least, because we didn't close it with a date certain, so I'm just gonna recommend that we schedule this for the August 10th for the continuation. And if we're able to close it that night, that'll be great.
Sweet.
So extension to August 10th.
Well, we're scheduling, I guess, the continuation of the hearing for August 10th.
If this dispute doesn't get resolved by August 10th? do
Then we could keep it
postpone
open
it?
then.
Or we can decide it and make it subject to. But I anticipate that we'll know one way or the other if we're gonna have to do that.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Okay, motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent. So August 10th scheduled.
Number 6 was actually extended to the 27th, so it's not supposed to be on the agenda.
So 6 Mulvey
six
is
is
off.
So it's off the agenda.
6 is off.
Taken care of, it's number 1 now under EA site plan, this is for Lewis Road. Yes.
Number 7.
Oh, number 7, okay, sorry. This is, review and consider the
Thank you.
approval of the, turf management plan and the groundwater management plan. Claire has been handling, this component of the project. Right now, I'm working on the legal documents and open space dedication to the town. My understanding is, it was submitted, it was reviewed by, Mr.
Petrovic.
Petrovic.
He gave some comments, is my understanding, how this unfolded. Those comments then were reviewed and sent back to the applicant. The applicant then incorporated those changes, was sent back to Marty Petrovic.
Petrovic.
And then he signed off on the, and so did Janice, by the way. They've all been doing the review, which is how the resolution was written. So I actually just have a resolution here, and I always try to spell out the project in these resolutions for this project. You know, how we got to this point of the requirement. I only grade out those two areas, just so you know, because I always like to double check dates.
Why don't you
before
start
I
it from the
finalize.
top, Anthony?
Okay.
Just review it.
Okay, sure. So the resolution, by resolution dated December 8th, 2022, the planning board, this first whereas is when the planning board granted the conditional approval for the subdivision map. So that's basically the description of the location of the property. The second whereas is a description of the project itself, you know, how many lots, how many, you know, what the improvements are. The third whereas talks about the condition of approval and the requirement for a groundwater management plan and an integrated turf health management plan. The next whereas talks about the date that the documents were submitted. And then we have the next whereas that the planning board retained Marty Petrovic to review. The next whereas Marty Petrovic provided a report dated, and that's where I need to verify the date because there's always a lot of emails going back and forth. The next whereas talks about the actual revised documents that were submitted with the dates that they were submitted, and how they were approved by the town, by Janice Shearer and Mr. Petrovic. So then I have the resolution that the planning board approves the integrated turf management monitoring plan and the groundwater management plan, and then recommending same to the town board, because they have to do the official.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yes, you'll see though, just, it's in a box there, it's 1,000 pages, just so you are aware.
The ground management plan.
The integrated turf management. plan.
Is there a condensed version of
Yeah,
it?
we could, here, I brought
Yeah.
the applicants in case you had any questions.
Okay, great. Oh, you have one for each of us? Great. Thank you.
What is that you're submitting, just so I know?
This is the groundwater management?
The groundwater management, which is much,
Monitoring
okay.
plan. The,
Thank you.
you said the IPHMP was 1,000 pages.
So this is a review, condensed.
This is the groundwater monitoring plan.
Could we also
and there's
get the
two
name for
plans.
the, could we get the name for the record?
Paul Grosser,
Yeah, you put it, yeah.
PW Grosser Consulting. Thank you.
So do you want to tell us just a little about this? Distributed, this is the ground.
I can do that.
Yeah, would you?
Just the description. Brief.
Yeah, you can come here.
This shows the site. And all the
Here, there we go.
groundwater monitoring wells.
The cookies.
Those are
Like
counted,
yours
those
are
are-
cookies.
those are counted, those are counted.
Okay. Okay, this is the property. If you go to page 11 in the report,
Okay.
it gives you a summary of all the different monitoring wells and what their purpose is. Okay. To put this in perspective, there's 14 groundwater monitoring wells. Sabonic has 7, so it's a lot more monitoring going on. A lot of that is just the configuration of the golf course and the upstream situation here. If you look at, this here is all agricultural land. And this is Bill Tintel's sand and
Sand
gravel
line, yeah.
line, okay? And this is all agricultural land all up to here. And the groundwater flow direction is this way, okay, towards Weesup Creek. So we found that a lot of this area has been contaminated with nitrates, and that's where we're looking and using that water to irrigate and fertilize the golf course. Okay. And so we've got some background monitoring wells along this border to know what the water quality is coming onto the site. Okay? And it varies because this will be different, because upstream is not agricultural here, this is agricultural. So we're looking to see what those differences are. And then we've got a number of groundwater monitoring wells related to the sewage treatment plant, which would be here, which are required by the health department. And then from the list there, you can see different wells monitoring different tees, different greens, different drainage recharge areas,
Irrigation ponds?
the irrigation ponds, yes, we've got that.
To just help me orient, where is the road that comes into the property? Because I know that the sewage treatment plant is near there.
This is Lewis Road,
Okay,
so this is the road coming into the property, this is where the
It's right
sewage
there.
treatment plant is.
Okay, thank you.
This is Sunrise Highway up here.
And Weesuck Creek is.
Weesuck
kinda-
Creek
Is
is
down-
down.
is
over
here.
Right. So it's a very comprehensive plan as far as locations of all these wells, to monitor different things. We expect to see different water quality in a number of these wells, some related to background and some related to, you know, these wells up here. Will probably be pretty clean. Okay, these wells down in here will probably have some pretty significant nitrogen issues.
And you're
Okay.
saying that's a pre-existing condition?
Pre-existing condition, okay? We're in the process already, first 3 months, we're sampling every month, all of these wells, before any work has been done, as far as, you know, putting down topsoil and turf or anything like that. You know, there's the clearing done, it had to be done, one as part of putting these wells in, and the other in as part of construction, getting going.
And those reports have gone to Marty as well?
They will be going to Marty.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately,
Because that's a
P-
baseline, right?
yes, PW Grosser is actually doing it and using the laboratory that WSP, who does Sabonic and does the town's work on this, is done,
Mhm.
but there's no contract now between the town and WSP. So we're getting, at least getting that data. We're all using the same protocols of how we sample, and this has been discussed with them, and they understand it, and it's similar. So, and those results will be going to Marty as well, and to the town.
And so the frequency of monitoring is monthly?
For the first 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then, it's gonna be 4 times a year, once construction gets going and it gets in place. And we've refined that, you know, Sabonic, for instance, does quarterly monitoring. With discussions with Marty, we've come up with doing 4 times a year monitoring, but I think we've got March or April, then June, August, and November. So it's more intense during the periods where there would be use of the golf course and recharge periods
Mhm.
related to that. So,
Tell us a little bit about the nitrogen here.
okay. We've put in shallow monitoring wells way back when as part of the EIS, right? And we discovered some significant nitrogen concentrations along this boundary. We have since, this spring, put in a vertical profile well because we've got an irrigation well going in here. Okay? And we went down, I want to say 130, 140 feet, something like that, and took samples. And we found a zone where there's the highest concentration of nitrogen, and that average was 18 milligrams per liter. So, you know, just perspective, drinking water standard is 10.
Mm.
And when we did all our analysis as part of the EIS, we were using about 8 as for use for fertilizing and irrigation. So this is higher than that, which is a good thing, because you can get more fertilizer than out of your irrigation water than you would need to put down.
Right.
And, you know, pulling out, what we think we're gonna be pulling out, we'll be removing about a ton of nitrogen per year with this method. Okay, we pull out the high nitrogen laden groundwater, put it on the golf course uses it as a nutrient, as part of the fertilization program. right? And that counts in their fertilizer cap. And the turf uses it.
Suppose there's excess that doesn't need it all, the green.
Excess, that's why we've got a second irrigation well
Mm-hmm.
here. And so we'll just blend. So this one we expect to have little to no nitrogen in it. So if we have more than we need from here, we'll blend it with this low nitrogen water to get that right mixture.
Do you have a main station where you control all of these wells?
There's the superintendent station, we'll have that. There's monitors on each of the well discharges, so it measures the nitrogen continuously. So at any time, superintendent can look at his irrigation water and know how much nitrogen he's got in this well here, how much nitrogen he's got in this well here.
So it shows up on that. Where is that located?
The superintendent, I think it's here at the
Maintenance building?
In the
maintenance building, right? Yeah.
And they can pump the water from one location to another, is that
It
what?
goes into the pond. So it comes from here, goes to the pond, and comes from here and goes to the pond, and mixes in the pond, okay? And then there's also a monitor on the discharge from the pond where we pump the water out of the pond, and that goes to the irrigation system. So we'll know exactly what's going out to the heads as well.
So there's a monitoring well at the pond, several?
There's a nitrogen monitor on the pump for
Mhm.
the pond, so they'll know exactly what's going out into the irrigation system from the pond. There's also a monitoring well by the pond as well, as you see.
Mhm. Yeah,
along
that's
that
what I'd
little piece.
asked.
Right. So that, in case there's a rupture of the pond line or something like that, that would pick that up.
How large is that pond? Do you know, Wayne? I don't know how much it holds.
About 3 altogether.
3
3 acres, 3 acres.
3 acres.
3 acres. So that pond is about 3 acres, lined.
Right.
To me, and I tried to read when we went through this process months and months and months ago, I tried to catch up and read a lot of the documents you had prepared,
Right.
Dr. Pektovic, but I'm far from an expert. But to me, it seems like the wells that are going to monitor what's heading towards Weesup Creek
Mhm.
are extraordinarily critical, because that will basically tell
Mhm.
us is more coming
Yeah.
out than went into the
Right.
property or whatever. So how often are those reports prepared? And
That's 4 times a year.
4 times a year? And that's, I mean, I see the 2 by the STP.
All of these wells will be monitored 4 times a
4
year.
times a year, okay.
Tom, do you think, that's an interesting point you make. Do you think we need one on this side, right
There's
close to
monitoring-
Weesick?
Well, here, there's
It's
this
up
one,
There?
there's one here, and there's one here, and we've got one here. So we've got a number down gradient. of
And
that.
what happens if the nitrogen is at 20 at that well?
Yeah.
What
do you do?
happens?
Do you shut it down? Shut
There are
down?
triggers.
Yeah, yeah.
In the normal triggers in the process, and the point is it's monitored quarterly, so if it's not 20 the month or 3 months before, then there's gotta be some reason why, and I'll just go back to like Sabonic and in the bridge. So the monitoring agreement program is to allow the town to actually have this monitoring at our cost, you to do that. So, and then it includes the whole groundwater monitoring program as well as the ITHMP have an entire program with triggers as certain things that we have to comply with. In Sabonic, they had an event when the Women's US Open was coming. So the year before, like the spring before, I think it was, or whatever, they had a spike of a certain chemical that wasn't even, it's not even allowed or used, not only on the golf course, but nowhere on Long Island. And so that's how sensitive this process is.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, there was this search, how and where did this come up? Is someone dumping something on the property? But what they found out was that there were certain areas that needed to, turf needed to be replaced near a tee box. That happened to be near a well. And they found out that the supplier of the turf didn't come from a supply on Long Island, it came from New Jersey, where this chemical was allowed. So that, and it was immediately corrected, that, you know,
Right.
obviously, they found the source and it was able to be resolved, but that's the
That's the
triggers.
sensitivity of
Yes.
it,
Yes.
yeah, well, that's
And there's,
important.
like Wayne was saying, there's a process that, okay, if it triggers, like, it's 2.5 milligrams per liter of nitrogen is what triggers the wells at Sabonic. These will have to be looked at a little differently because they've got background concentrations which might be 8, 10. So we've got to look at, that's why we got these 3 samples beforehand, say, okay, what's this baseline that we're looking at? And then if it goes 2.5 above that, that triggers something. Stop fertilizing in that area, okay? Until they go down and you can get a handle on, you know, what may have happened. We review drainage in the area, has any changes been made as far as, you know, contours that would maybe funnel water into these wells or something like that. So a whole process is going through a review, and it includes resampling. So if it comes up high, we go back and resample to confirm that it wasn't a laboratory error or something like that. And if it does, then that triggers something. For the pesticides, it triggers no use of that pesticide, even if it's a positive, right? If there's any kind of detection,
Mhm.
it triggers stop using that. Yeah.
But protocol-wise, how does that happen? Who sees it? What are the steps? That's,
What happens is it actually goes straight through the town. You know, once we get through this first quarter, WSP is the firm that does the sampling, arranges for the analyses. The analyses are sent directly to the town for their review and to Marty Petrovic. We actually don't see them generally until something happens.
and so then is this someone on the town staff that's responsible for checking
The-
that
the- yeah.
and alerting immediately, or?
Janice,
Yeah, throws up a flag.
Janice looks at
Okay,
those
right.
documents.
same thing on Sabonic and the
Mhm,
bridge.
Yeah, not Marty Shea.
No, it goes Department,
Goes to the-
Director of Land
planning.
Management, yeah, so.
So, you mentioned that the contract has not yet been executed between
Well,
the
that's what
town.
so to do that, we need
You
you
need
to approve.
to look at the plan, the
The
blueprint.
plans,
The plan.
and they get incorporated and by reference and attached to the
Mhm.
agreement that goes to the town board.
Right. And so this irrigation pond is critical, it's a critical ingredient in this whole
Yes,
scheme.
yes, yes.
And so someone is checking that regularly?
When I was out doing the site visit 6 or 8 weeks
Yes.
ago, Jessica had actually suggested that we might want to come back
Yeah.
when those ponds are being created. I see her here. I
She's
was
here.
wondering if,
Yeah, she's-
where we are in that, is that something we could
Yeah.
plan to go see?
Yeah, we
You'll
just-
have to come up, sorry, but.
And that water is continuously monitored for nitrogen
I think all of us have been.
The water
except
in the
you
pond.
in the
so
pond.
far.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
what comes out of the
I've
pond and
been
goes
and
to the
I just talked to
irrigation
them.
system, which is.
You
It's
can be
here's
here.
fine. We've got
As long
mics
as the
here.
mic picks you up.
The mics are hiding behind the cookies.
So there, I don't know what's easier for you guys, but the eastern side of the pond is being excavated right now. So all there is to see is
A hole in the ground.
But the liner is coming in soon, and I think that would be interesting for you guys to see.
Will you let us know so that
Yes.
we could take a site visit?
Yes, it should be in the next week or 2.
I'd say that I was just there a couple of hours ago, and the west pond there, I'd say is probably 30 to 40% dug.
The large
Yeah,
portion.
it's big.
And this morning, the pump was delivered, which is a pretty considerable piece of machinery.
Yeah,
And that was loaded into the vault, which has been sunk over here, and that's all being hooked up as we speak. And so, once the liner is in, I think it'll be, it's sort of tough to see, because it's a lot of piles and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, big holes.
Mhm.
But it's starting to take shape, and as
Yeah.
soon as it is, we'd love to have you out
I
there.
think seeing the liner,
Yeah.
maybe even part of that process, I
Yes.
would find interesting.
Yeah, so we'll give you the date
names.
when it's
Yeah.
gonna begin, and then whenever,
Yeah, I guess we have to
whatever
go.
groups you come in.
Yeah, we need to go in smaller
smaller
groups
groups?
Yeah,
because
smaller
we
groups,
can't
But
be
yeah.
it's
together.
fine, someone could come at 1 and someone could come at 2, it's
Okay.
Yeah.
whatever is
Whatever.
convenient for you.
Just give us your names for the record.
Jessica Insulaco.
Mark, you see? And yeah, you should see it when the liner is in, because that's kind of cool to see, because then we're gonna put a foot of sand on top of it so it just looks so natural, and then we've got to grow vegetation around the edges too.
So I remember way back when we were looking at this, I had made a suggestion that we also put a monitoring well by Weesick Creek. But it was my understanding, I think, that we couldn't do that, right?
Well,
But
it's an
I-
off-premise thing, but I'd leave it to Paul to tell you is what are you monitoring? There's so
Well-
much land use in between our property and Weesup Creek.
That could potentially pollute the water.
That's already polluting
Yeah.
the water if they're
Because
doing
there's
that
no
already.
sewering
That
over there, it's
existing,
all
all the
sanitary.
developments and houses that are already there.
What's the distance, do we know, from there?
It's about
It's
a mile.
About, no, as the crow flies, it's like 1,600 feet from here to Weezick.
And with houses in between?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And the railway line and all the rest of it.
And septic systems.
Yeah,
Septic
septic.
systems,
Old-
fertilizer,
Old septic.
Old
all of that.
Yeah.
So we don't know,
No
we don't know what
AIs.
you're getting.
Yeah, that's something none
It'd
of
be
us in this
interesting
table.
to see if Stony Brook has a team that would just add that as a testing site or something.
Yeah.
You know, really just about getting a mooring permit or going and monitoring
Yeah,
it.
but
Just as a point of
That's
data.
what we were asking, do we
Yeah.
have wells between here?
Yeah.
Kate has a question.
Oh, sorry.
So
Right,
we-
that's what I mean, just, cause
The
it's
surface
interesting to
water.
see, so can you explain the methodology in terms of depth of, you know, like how, you're saying it's 130 feet down for the initial northern monitoring well, but then how many feet down, and how do you calculate that based on like flow?
Well, all the
How
site
it all goes
monitoring
down?
wells are the same depth into groundwater. They may be different depths because of different elevations.
Right.
Okay, but they have a screen that goes from 5 feet above the water table to 10 feet below the water table.
Okay,
So we're essentially just capturing the top part of the water table, which is what's first
that
impacted
aquifer
by
layer,
what's
the same one of how it goes.
by what's immediately above it.
Okay.
And that's the idea, is you're gonna get recharge coming from rainwater and irrigation water coming in through the turf and through the recharge areas. And immediately beneath that is where the monitoring well is, at that level. So we don't have to worry about going with depth, because, you know, what we're pulling out in this supply well, you know, this is gonna be between, I think, like 80 and 110 feet or so, is gonna be stuff that came in
Further north.
up here in the agricultural areas.
But there's one other thing to add about the timing of the testing. With Sabonic, we really just said, okay, it's gonna do 4 times a year. We split it up every 3 months. Marty Petrovich, in monitoring this now for nigh on 20 years, thought that it would be better to do it in the pattern that Paul said, because we really weren't getting any relevant information on certain times of the year.
In the winter.
So this
Yes.
is gonna be a lot more indicative as to what is happening on the property, as opposed to just sort of conveniently doing it every 3 months.
Yeah.
So when did what did you skip, December to March or something, or I missed
Correct.
that,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
because that's, there's no use of the golf course, they're not gonna be putting down fertilizer, they're not gonna be doing anything, so. And then, picking up in, like April, when you've got a lot of rain and recharge, and you're starting to use the golf course, and then the middle of the season, and then in November, where, you get more recharge than you do in the middle of the summer, because a lot of it goes up as evaporation and transpiration, so.
So
we
what
do
are
that.
those dates? April, May, April?
I think it's April, June, August, November.
Those are the testing dates.
Right, right. You know, we're learning as we go along with all of these golf course monitoring programs, and we're looking to improve them all the time.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing here.
Just one quick question. Do you have any kind of a backup plan in case there is a deluge? I mean,
Like
once
the
in a-
rain upstate New York and
Well, like they had come
Vermont.
through Mauritius, we get 4 inches of rain in 2
Right.
hours. yeah.
Is there any kind of thinking about that, thinking ahead? If there is something like that, so that there's an extraordinary rainfall and flooding? Because you're saying the water flows this way.
Yeah, the recharge area, well, the groundwater flows that way.
Yeah.
There's recharge areas on site which are
Mhm.
designed to pick up a certain amount of that. I don't remember offhand how many inches.
They're
of
on the
rainfall.
site?
Site plan
Oh,
was
yeah.
3
Yeah.
inches.
Everything is
Yes.
enclosed within the site, and the
Right.
DRAs have been built to accommodate any kind of massive.
So that's
rainfall.
3 inches
that's
usually,
3 inches
3
is-
inch rainfall,
Right,
Is-
right.
which
What
is-
the code is. yeah.
which is
Which
gonna
is
happen.
probably not
Right.
what we
It
should
took
be
them a
doing
long
these
time to
days,
go from
but
2 inches to 3 inches.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that
assume
number
it-
was increased recently,
Yeah,
too.
exactly, you know
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So you think that it would be adequate, what you've got built into the system?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Not for what we're seeing with the change in our climate, but are we able to actually
Well,
manage that now, because we don't
that's-
really
yeah.
know?
That's somewhat independent of the groundwater monitoring system. The
Yeah.
groundwater monitoring system doesn't, the reason we have 5 feet of screen above the water table is in case the water table comes up.
Right, and that's what I
On a
was
certain
getting
amount
to,
of
is
time, so
like,
we've got a
what if you
range in
miss
there we can
the
work.
depth where that particular nitrogen or chemical
Right.
was, so the screen
Covers that zone.
it covers the whole zone.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you think 14 wells will do it, right?
absolutely.
Not anymore?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the mitigation measure, I think you were asking about before,
Mhm.
Jackie, that if there is a spike in nitrogen on those monitoring wells towards Weesup Creek, how is that mitigated before it, you know?
We resample to confirm that, and then, if it's confirmed, then we reduce the fertilizer, or stop the fertilizer in that area.
Right, but what about what's
They're not gonna,
continuing?
they're not,
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
it's in Weesup
you know,
Creek.
A little bit,
It's,
that's, that's,
the monitoring
what,
is
you know,
to
what we're
help us
doing here,
not continue.
Mhm.
you know,
But
that's gonna
shouldn't
be
there be a
minimal compared to what we're
mitigation
doing with the
measure
irrigation well.
for
We're
that?
literally pulling out over a ton of nitrogen a year
Mhm.
through that irrigation well,
And putting it onto the
and
greens?
spreading it over the course.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul,
Yeah.
on both the bridge and Sabonic, I don't believe there's ever been a trigger on nitrogen. Other chemicals,
Mhm.
like I said, that one pesticide or whatever it was, but I don't think nitrogen has ever been an issue. In fact, what I heard was that, for example, we lined the greens on Sabonic, and the scientists have sort of said that this is proven that the way nitrogen is now applied, not like it was indiscriminately in the past, there's such a control on it, that there was no need to line these in the first place, because there's no nitrogen getting to that point. So just,
Yeah,
that
so
has been
nitrogen
part
is
of the
different than
EIS.
a chemical, say,
Yeah.
from the green that gets, it goes past that gate of the monitoring well.
Mhm.
So what I'm understanding is the trigger, the alarm bell goes off, and it's like, oh, well, that one got by.
Well, we catch it as quickly as we can,
It's a little-
right? It's-
Yeah.
Right, and stop doing
Uh,
whatever triggered it.
These are-
Sure,
these are
but what about the
incredibly sensitive.
mitigation of what's already occurred that got
Depends on
past
what-
that and is gonna
probably
continue
depend on
down
what
into
is
the
there.
creek? Yeah.
There's one other thing to remember too, fertilizer and all the compounds, they're unbelievably expensive.
Fertilizers.
Yes.
So, and that goes up with the price of oil and everything, and, so you don't wanna put down too much because you're wasting money, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
want
I'm
them-
advocating for farmers all of the time, and I
Mhm.
know, farmers are not just broadcast spraying anymore or using products.
You can't afford-
However,
you can't afford
it is a
it.
valid question and
Mhm.
concern that if, Grumman Air Force Base, has a lot of chemicals that are traveling down a plume, there is a mitigation that's required if,
Right.
per chance, a chemical that
That's-
normally wouldn't be used in a residential got through that gate and went down, what happens?
Those are plumes that are
Yeah.
literally miles long
I
and,
understand.
hundreds of yards, if not more, wide. This will be, we'll see this as a specific spike in time
Mm.
and remediate it immediately. And it does dissipate, it's gonna, in all likelihood, still be, as the nitrogen loading from the entire area, it's still gonna be reducing the amount of nitrogen going down to Weesup Creek. You might see a little spot coming down for whatever reason, but the other areas will be decreasing. And what's, flowing in that plume will be decreasing.
And Marty has in his plan, some mechanism that if something should happen, and I think that's what we're talking about, because
Mhm.
we
Right.
always say it'll never happen. Well, look at the world right now,
Yeah.
right? It's snowing in where, Saudi Arabia, Iran, some.
South Africa got
South
whacked
Africa,
this week,
yes.
yeah.
It's as I remember in some of your papers, that you shut down the system,
Mhm.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's in Marty's plan?
Yes,
That-
that's in this,
It's in here.
Plan and in the ITHMP.
Okay,
And don't forget too, he reviews everything all the time.
Yeah.
And so if there is a product that comes out, there's two things you gotta think about. One's velocity, you don't want the compound to go anywhere. And number two is the toxicity.
mhm,
And he is always looking for products which limit both of those
Right.
things, therefore making them safer than,
Mhm.
you know, we're using ones now that you probably weren't even existing 20 years ago.
But for the record, are you saying that if there were a chemical that was detected, obviously there's a shutdown measure, but like if an oil spill happens, there's a shutdown measure, but there's still an environmental damage that occurs. And I'm wondering if in this plan, there is a mitigation obligation to resolve any potential environmental damage.
There's not a cleanup aspect to it. I think it would be really difficult. You know, you have to go in and then start putting other monitoring wells all around it and tracking this blip, which is very much controlled as we go along.
Doesn't Marty suggest anything though? I mean, I think that's a very valid point, that what if, it's the what if here
Mhm.
because it's so sensitive.
He did not suggest it, and we haven't seen, you know, from his experience, a need for it. And like I said, when you look at the overall site, if you have one point where it comes up a little high for one reason, so you stop that, but you're still pumping out for irrigation use a huge amount of nitrogen. That is a mitigating,
I understand, I
we're
understand
mitigating a
that.
big plume
No,
from these
Paul, I
agricultural
think-
areas.
But-
I think the board got that part of it, but I think the question, to answer your question, there's authority in the agreement and in the protocol, but not knowing exactly
Where?
what the issue may be, this chemical versus that chemical, or otherwise, what the remedy may be. But there is, we're talking about nitrogen loading and pesticides. And the first requirement is you stop doing, so you cut it off at the source if there's an issue. But you're also going to investigate, and that's an investigation both by us and the town and Marty Petrovic to figure out how this occurred. What's the source and what is the remedy?
Right.
So-
The authority's in there to do that.
So Marty has the authority
Yeah.
in the contract.
I did say that before you
Yeah,
came
we
in, but,
did,
so the
yeah.
point is, there, you know, it depends on the circumstance of what the issue is, but there
Right.
is all these triggers and the authorities there for the town to ask us to undertake certain things if that is the remedy.
We certainly review why this spike occurred. And, you know, you may not be able to go in and remove whatever happened in that spike, that's why I'm saying overall, it's negative, but we will go in and look, okay, what's the drainage situation? How did this occur, right? Did somebody have to,
What you're
don't
saying.
blow a fertilizer next to that
so
well for some reason or whatever.
What
You know,
Wayne
stuff
is
happens.
saying is that addressing the question that I have, because I understand hydrogeology, I've taught aquifer, you know, and hydrologic science for kids, but like, if something gets past that well, there is a remedy procedure, right? So
Mhm.
if a chemical, a pesticide were detected in the well that's just to that edge of the property, 1,600 feet from Weesuck Creek, and then eventually there is a testing done in Weesuck Creek that links that chemical to the golf course. Is there a remedy within
There
this
is,
plan?
There, I think there would be a remedy.
Okay.
There
that's
would be
all.
some kind of
So I just
mitigation
wanna
that would
get
be
to that
required to
answer.
perform if it popped up in Weesuck Creek.
But I would
That's
also
the
point
big
out,
what if.
though, is you have the other wells that are more internal to that.
Sure, yeah.
So that if there was an issue and it was a result of the golf course activity, you're gonna have that detected before it gets to
Earlier
that
than it
exterior
gets
well.
to
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
think what, you know, what you're hearing, and I think what we need to start to pay attention to in all kinds of stuff, is what happens in a catastrophic event, that's all. What is
Sure.
the mitigation and what's the backup plan,
Absolutely.
et cetera. And with a large project like this, that's why you're hearing our concerns and environmental questions So,
No, I work on resiliency a lot on,
Oh,
how
okay,
how you,
great.
the next storm and what it's gonna look like and how
Right.
do you mitigate it, so, I certainly appreciate that concern.
Suffolk County, homeowners are only allowed to fertilize between April 1st and October 31st.
Right.
Are you guys obligated by that same regulation?
I think you're only open till when?
Yeah, I mean, we.
Or
we
you may
don't-
not want to fertilize.
We don't
November.
open until, April 15th, middle of April, and then we close the end of October.
So it's about the same period of time, right?
But you're not, as I said,
Yeah.
I know homeowners are not allowed.
Right.
I don't know.
I thought that was a general rule, not just for homeowners.
I like-
That's what I'm
That was a
I'm a
question.
homeowner. That's why, I know that
Well,
law.
I don't have any grass.
I don't
so
fertilize
And
anymore.
like
I've
Mark says,
stopped.
fertilizer is
But-
expensive, and if it doesn't,
Right.
isn't effective during that period, then
When I used to,
don't do it.
I knew to abide by that law.
And frankly, how fickle we are in the Hamptons. People don't show up in November, so you don't want to open up.
So just one
But you're
quick
not
question,
open, but are
where the
you-
nitrogen
are
is
they
coming
regulated?
off that
Yeah.
property to the west, is it?
Correct.
That was farmland up there?
It's been farmland,
Yeah.
yeah. for-
Right, so it's loaded with nitrogen.
Like I said, the average in that zone.
Is
we're looking-
18.
Is 18.
Yeah.
Right, and, if there wasn't any farmland there, it would be 0.5, 1 maybe. There's significant impacts.
Yeah,
from that.
so is that endless, the nitrogen that's in farm soil? I mean, does it
Is it-
ever get depleted, or
Ultimately, but they have to stop fertilizing.
are they
right?
still farming
Yeah,
them?
it's still actively
Yeah.
farmed.
It's
Oh,
active.
So-
Town bought
absolutely.
the development rights on all those properties, so
Yeah.
the
Oh.
expectation is they'll be, continue to be
To
farmed.
farm.
Yeah.
Deniseski and Kajowski properties.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
It'll be farmed forever.
Right,
this
so
is
you
a
have a
forever
nitrogen
solution.
issue
Conservation
forever.
opportunities,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got.
They can
well,
improve their methodologies, but still, you're gonna have a
Well,
significant, and it's row
the
crops,
farmers,
which
right.
are
Yeah.
a problem.
So, when we come for a site visit, will this, center, control center be in place?
No,
We gotta get the
no,
permits.
not, if you guys are coming to
Biomass.
see the ponds in the next couple of weeks, no.
No. Okay, well, we'll come back, because I'm
Yeah, you
can
curious
come back
to
anytime.
see what that's, probably an all computerized system, and,
Yep.
It's all still
And we
far
won't
from
understand
function.
any of it.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, they're just bringing in the irrigation pump now, and the
Yeah.
whole control system has got to be in place, and it's a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that we're kicking the tires on this because, this, as you know, this project was, there was a lot of controversy back both for and against the
Right,
project.
right.
And, it's important for us to now, in our role, really monitor things and make sure that we
Yeah.
understand so that we
Take
can
a
help
hard
to
look.
guide and,
Right.
ensure the trust.
can I ask you why you only put one irrigation pond in? I'm just curious. As opposed to a secondary irrigation pond?
Well, then it's really more costly that you've got to then have a separate set of pumps and a separate set of controls and everything else for two ponds then. And it becomes a little different design.
Right.
And it's not
But
as
if you
efficient.
decide, if you find out that you may need one, you would put one in probably, right? For the functioning of the
I doubt
course?
it.
You doubt it?
We
Why,
don't-
the cost of this is way up there?
It would really change the architecture of the golf course tremendously.
Would you say 3 acres, Jim? 3.
Yeah, a little bit
That's
more.
pretty good.
Mhm.
We've got excess capacity in the ponds to some extent, so,
For stormwater.
for stormwater and for the irrigation water.
Okay, so we'll read this. Thank you for making these for us.
Yeah.
This is like a recap of Marty's, what is
This
this
is the plan.
yours?
That's
Yeah,
all-
This is
this
the
is
plan.
our
This
plan
is
that
not a
Marty has
recap, this is
reviewed.
everything.
This is the plan.
That's the full plan, and then.
This is the IM.
Yeah, so the
Uh,
ICHMP, this is the first half, it's 1,000
Right.
pages, I've read it. Jeff Seaman here in the blue shirt is actually the gentleman who wrote it, and it's basically all the rules and the protocols for how the superintendents and so on, what they're allowed to use, what they're not allowed to use, et cetera.
Is there an executive summary that's 2 pages?
We can get you an executive summary, it's 2 pages, but basically it's all the rules. And so
Yeah.
if something happens, this is the rules
Yeah.
and what you can and can't do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't
Yeah.
have the expertise to be able
Yeah.
to read that and actually
Understand it.
absorb it and
Well,
make
that's what
sense out of it.
Marty, that's why Marty
Yeah.
reviewed it
Yeah.
all. He reviewed the full plan, and then there were 2 addenda because this was
drafted in 2016, and it's been updated all the way through 2022 at the latest.
And who
And-
actually reads and uses that plan?
The superintendent of the golf course.
Superintendent, okay.
Is this the superintendent?
No.
No, but Jeff is a professional superintendent, he wrote it.
You
Well,
don't
it's
even
really
wear
probably a
glasses.
reference.
I say you don't even
Yeah,
wear
right.
glasses
He
and you
doesn't
wrote
need
No,
that.
it becomes a requirement, if I may. First of all, these documents have been part of the project from its inception. And Marty has, when the town was in front of the town board, and provided his input as it got to the planning board. And as the plan starts to get more refined, location of wells, they're the changes that occurred, but the basic protocols have been in place for 10 years now on these documents. So you've seen these documents before. Most recently, though, is these were submitted when the subdivision was pending. You reviewed them and acknowledged those in your finding statement and everything else. But they were submitted, and the board requested that Marty take one last look at it, and that's what just occurred, as well as Janice's office looked at it and refined it. So that Marty came back with a number of recommendations, which we addressed with Marty and revised the documents, and that has since been reviewed, and the recommendation of this board is that you accept it so that we can get these attached to the agreement that the town board needs to get so that
For a contract.
the town can start billing us for the monitoring.
Right.
And that's essentially what the agreement has, but
Right.
also has the other protocols for, it speaks to, in addition to the triggering that's within the documents itself, the other remedies that gives the town the authority to do that is in that agreement as well. And once the town board accepts that, this board, as you did on Sabonic and the bridge, wants that memorialized in a covenant, which we provided drafts, the town attorney and staff has already looked. And it referenced that requirement to have monitoring and have the ITHMP is an ongoing requirement, no matter who owns the property and operates the golf course.
So has the town board looked at this and accepted this, or what's?
They will,
So
when
it's only
you adopt the
it's referral
resolution
to us?
recommending this to
It's
you.
referral to us, right?
No,
No,
It goes from you to them.
Yes.
You recommend, like a maintenance bond, you
Right.
recommend acceptance.
to the town board, they then
And
review
then
it.
we get into contractual agreements,
Okay,
testing.
and I believe that's the resolution, I think Anthony mentioned earlier, is that's what the resolution that's before you.
Says the Southampton Town Planning Board hereby approves the integrated turf health management plan prepared by Jeffrey L. Seaman dated June 27, 2023, and the groundwater monitoring plan prepared by P.W. Grosser dated June 2023, and hereby recommends the town board acceptance of the same.
So do you want to tell us about the report from your perspective, having written it? Just, I think it's important just for the public record
Yes.
too, you know, that we hear from everyone.
Okay,
State.
Can
my
you give
name
us
is,
your name? Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey Seaman. I'm owner of East Quogue Golf Corporation, and I prepared this report for Discovery Land, and it was submitted, I believe, in 2016. An integrated turf health management plan is a dynamic management system for golf courses. My background is in turf and agronomic sciences and environmental sciences. So for the record, I can tell you industry-wide, this is the most sophisticated golf course monitoring and management plan that the industry has ever seen. And, you know, without patronizing, I'd like to compliment all the stakeholders in both the monitoring that you've been doing at the bridge and Sabonic and now here, because this is certainly a step up from even that. And to answer your question, golf courses are exempt in Suffolk County from meeting those deadlines, but we do it very differently. We're using science, so we'll use soil temperature and plant tissue analysis and soil samples to determine what we're going to apply, nitrogen and otherwise. I don't want to get into a lot of details on the science and unless you have specific questions along those lines. I know a tremendous amount of work has gone into this project overall. And as I said earlier, it's a monitoring plan unmatched by anything, certainly in the United States. So kudos. You've brought new light, I think, to the industry. I think defensively, golf courses have been somewhat targeted as a large contributor to pesticide, nitrogen loads, etc. But through the scientific research that you've been conducting for 20 years, and now this, you've pretty much justified that the management tools available today can be implemented, and the environmental stewardship that all superintendents are credentialed to abide to really do work. And you can still have an excellent playing surface on top of that.
Can you talk about how you use this every day? Because I imagine that it's really just a reference when you're gut checking your instinct, perhaps.
Well, it was my goal personally. I'm a certified environmental professional, and I'm a certified golf course superintendent, which is the highest level you can meet. Academically, I also have other credentials, master's level, etc., in those sciences. 20 years ago, I saw a real need to sandwich these two issues together. And I guess I started on this project when the Becker brothers first got involved 15 years ago. I lived in East Quogue on Lewis Road. I'm very familiar with the farm preservations as well as the drainage issues and some of the chemicals that have been legacy. I had a private well with Dactyl, so I know exactly what the concerns of the local people are. So I was pretty dedicated personally to make sure that this worked to the best science available that we had. And I have to compliment Discovery. They didn't hold back on any of the recommendations that I felt were necessary to improve on the turf management and monitoring that had been done at the other two golf courses.
And so how does a superintendent just, as part of their everyday job, is this used as a reference manual, or does someone read the 1,000 pages and then go on?
Well, it's both. You have to understand that the superintendent is aware of all the parameters that I've put in the management plan. He's been an integral part of this entire development together with Marty. There's been a lot of back and forth and reviews and lists of pesticides that have been eliminated. Remember, here in New York State, DEC regulates all use of pesticides, and on Long Island, they're the most restrictive because of the aquifer. We refine that list even further. And I'm a certified pesticide applicator in New York and in New Jersey. New Jersey also has regulations for applications of fertilizer. We don't have that here, so I've been examined and tested for those applications, which I have integrated into this plan, whether or not that's required in New York or not. We're looking at putting down 1/10 of a pound of nitrogen, per 1,000 square feet. So that's a pretty small amount. Our goal is not to make the grass grow too quick. If we do, we have to mow it more frequently. It gets thatchy. It builds up an organic layer. That deters the drainage that we're looking for. That restricts the root development. So we're working with the physiology of the plant in this plan, not just parameters of chemistry or restrictions on application dates, etc. We're actually building a healthy soil and plant system that should be self-sustaining.
This is really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, very helpful, very interesting too.
Oh, okay,
Really appreciate your expertise.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for the information, appreciate it. So Anthony, you've got this resolution in front of us, you're going to dress it up, right? with a
Yeah, I'm just,
heading
well,
and
yeah, I wanna make
everything?
sure the dates are correct in there, but the last resolve is actually, correct, that's stated there.
Any other questions?
I'll move it.
No, moved by Dennis, second by
Second. I'll second.
Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent. Thank you. We'll call you when we
Yeah.
come for a site visit. You'll let us know when the liners are in.
I'll let Anthony.
Let Anthony know.
Yeah, and I'll send forward to you.
Okay.
I believe on the agenda you're looking at, I have, I think it's 10 and 11, Farrell Butter Lane, and then 225 and 251 Butter Lane. Is that how you say it?
Number 10 is Farrell Butter
Yep,
Lane.
that's
Yep.
right. So, this is, we've looked at this before, the next two.
I
same
think
property.
Carl is not here. Is this Carl's application?
He
It
was.
is Carl's
Yeah.
Yeah,
application.
he's, I just saw
Just
him.
outside.
You're
So,
on.
Ben Casa. So the first one was the subdivision component of this project. You might recall it's on Butter Lane, just north of the railroad, the LI 40 zoning district. The proposal is for a 3-lot subdivision.
Anthony, just tell us what we're looking at because there's 2 parcels here.
Oh, my apologies. There are actually 2 parcels as part of this application, but we're looking at it as combined
As one.
as one. So,
Okay.
my apologies.
But it's the whole thing.
But it's the whole thing that you see here.
Right, and Carl, you realize that there's Mount Everests of dirt on this land. And they have been there for several years, and they are a health hazard. So, I've personally complained about this any number of times. Anthony could testify to that. I've taken photos, et cetera. You've been to the site, you know it. I don't know what they're gonna do with that, you know. Here we are sitting, you're asking for approvals and to move stuff forward, and the site is a detriment to the health and welfare of the community. So,
On the, to that point, well, let me do this first, Carl. So the first application that we're looking at, number 10, Farrell Butter Lane, is the 3-lot subdivision. One,
that
two.
large one? The I
The,
see.
the 3, yeah, 3, here's Butter Lane. They had been before the zoning board, for a lot width variance for this piece here, and then there's a 10-foot flag strip to the back. Obviously, the plan, will have common access for all the, for the.
But they're merging it? They're merging it before they subdivide?
Yeah, well, it's basically one property that we're looking at. The 2 properties that have separate tax map numbers are basically being redivided or subdivided into these 3 lots as configured. But this 3-lot configuration is the combination of the 2 lots there. So we have then the pending subdivision application, and then the next one on the agenda is the site plan component, which I'll get to. For the purposes, we're gonna be deeming both applications incomplete. And I have checklists, for both, for Carl, in addition to, we're waiting on the engineer's review. Plus, we have to do SECRA. You can't segment, SECRA review. So the site plan component, which
Has to be
includes
done.
168,000 square feet of mini storage and nearly 100 parking spaces, that 50 parking space threshold is what throws it into a type 1
Type one.
action, so we're gonna have to do a coordinated review. So on the first one here for Farrell Butter Lane, I'm recommending that we deem the application incomplete. They also haven't received health department for this yet. This is always the catch-22. The health department won't issue their approval for a subdivision until the SECRA is done. But SECRA is gonna take a little time here, it's a type 1 action, so we've gotta go through the
But
exercise
don't we
first.
have to do the subdivision first?
Well, yeah, first, yes, ultimately, yes,
Yeah.
but we're gonna deem that application incomplete is my recommendation,
Okay.
what we have to.
Did we be in coordination yet?
I'm waiting for, I want the engineer's comments first, because I wanna make sure there's no questions about, stormwater control or any, the elements there before I coordinate before the agencies. And I'm anticipating, that we would probably put it back on in a couple of weeks to start the coordination. But in any case, the first one here, number 10, the subdivision application is incomplete.
Okay, I also just want to say it's APOD, Carl, New York State Archaeological. There's not a tree on the property. And it's
And-
massively disturbed.
they have two different names, but it's the same
Yeah.
piece of property.
Yes, the same, it's two
So-
different application names, same property.
And the first,
Properties, that's correct, yes.
and the first is the subdivision,
First one, Farrell Butter Lane is the name of the subdivision.
okay.
That is incomplete for a number.
And that's well, they both, because they're the same, have the piles of dirt
To
on.
Jackie's point, by the way, so the property was, this whole area was farmed, so there was never any trees on the property, but you raise a question about the disturbance of this property, which is, this property's been disturbed, it's been utilized, it's been, it's been used.
It was
no
a
question.
construction site. They were
There's no question,
chopping.
and then this question's been raised before, and this will be part of what I try to find out, is that's over an acre of disturbance, which
Wow.
technically is supposed to be subject to a stormwater review and approval,
Mhm.
which was never done. So there may be questions from the engineer, so that's why,
Right, right.
we'll see. But again, this one, we'll deem this incomplete, and then we'll go to the
This
second
is
one.
Martyrs.
And can you just
This is Martyrs.
highlight what's
Up the
missing?
road.
Next to it.
It's up the
Waters is
road.
There's the
Martyrs.
health department first and foremost,
The
Okay.
next one.
And then a number of mapping
on the other
items,
side.
and I'll
Oh, no,
send you, I
the new one.
apologize
mean,
for not
years
attaching it.
ago, this is
It's mostly the mapping items and the engineer's review.
Can you also just go to the overhead to orient us exactly where it is?
It's north of the train.
Yeah, Martyrs is just,
So
Yeah, the new
Martyrs
Martyrs
is where?
down by Snake Hollow.
But on the other
Martyrs
side,
is
see,
on-
that was Martyrs up there.
You're just
Yeah.
talking about Martyrs.
That's what Claire and I took 2 years to get that done.
Which one was Martyrs, actually?
Right on the other side of the entrance, go up,
Yeah.
that's Martyrs.
Oh,
on
yes,
there.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. Okay. Yeah.
You got a question, Ben?
Nope.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of us here, but in just glancing through the resolution, which I know we're saying this is incomplete, but it says a flag strip of 10.01 was
Yes.
granted by the ZBA.
Yes.
Does that mean there's gonna be a 10-foot wide driveway?
No.
Okay.
This is
There will
legal-
be an easement.
That's
That's
for
just
road
a-
frontage.
That
legal
was for the
frontage.
road
Oh,
frontage
that's,
purpose.
okay, okay.
There'll be an easement, that ultimately what's gonna happen, as you'll see from the next application, is these three sites are going to be operating as a single,
As a single entity.
Okay,
Right.
okay, thanks.
No problem. So, incomplete.
That variance, I just want to put this. Carl Benacasa, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, for the applicant. With respect to that variance, that called for a 4-lot subdivision, so we do need to modify the terms of that variance, but no substantive changes will be made. I just wanted to note that for the record. We've applied for that modification, and we expect to be on the agenda shortly.
And that's the site plan.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
the
do
site
that
plan.
one next, I just want you to take an action on number 10.
Okay, so D being a number Farrell, Butter Lane, incomplete motion.
Motion.
Motion by Kate, second
Second.
by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
And then the, number 11 is 225 and 251, that's the actual two separate property addresses, for the, two separate properties that make up
That's a
this.
site plan.
And that's the site plan component. So you'll see here, they're Morton buildings ultimately, you're showing, I think it's roughly 158,000 square feet of mini storage, facility here. 97 parking spaces, some outdoor storage area. This application is also incomplete, there were some mapping items. Plus, we gotta get through the secret review, and obviously, we gotta
Yeah.
get some more information on that.
And why am I remembering a gym? Was that a totally
No, that's
different?
across the street.
You're
Oh.
thinking
That's
of another
across the
project,
street.
not far from here.
Okay, all right.
Also Carl's project.
By
So
the
this,
name's all me,
so this application is also incomplete.
Okay, motion to deem 225 and 251 Butter Lane incomplete.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Tom, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
All right. Number 11, this is the Charos LLC. Oh, 12, I'm sorry.
Well,
Actually, you rotate counterclockwise. You know this area, this is the Flying Point Road intersection there.
This is
The
the,
former diner,
Yeah.
this is adjacent to what was Pier 1, and I believe that's becoming a
Tesla.
Tesla.
that's all.
So, This is just a request for a pre-submission conference. The application,
Wait a minute, what are we looking at? Wait a minute,
Is
start
this a
from-
new,
This is
one
a
of the
new
new buildings
building?
that went up?
no,
What is
this is a new application.
This is for the back of the building,
That's the
behind the
back.
diner, right?
Yeah.
Oh, behind the
It
diner.
looks like one of the ones on the
Trying to get
image.
we're trying to get our
Uh-huh.
orientation.
Yeah. You're busy.
Just these two. I go home after this one. Carl Benacasa,
I'll meet you on
860.
the site, by the way, if you'd like to.
Good,
Would
so, yeah, so now you know, this is, for 8,000 square foot office, medical office building behind the diner site, along the highway there, if you remember.
Is it behind the Tesla facility?
No, behind the diner.
Tesla
Diner
is
next
The
to it.
diner, okay.
Tesla's the
I-
old Pier 1
Can you
Yeah.
pull up
site.
the
So
overhead?
this is,
Could you pull up the overhead?
Right
I
next.
thought there was workforce
an
housing back there.
So
Yeah.
Carl Benacasa, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, for the applicant, Mr. Charles, who's here with us. Just behind the diner, there's an unimproved piece of land, and that's what we're talking about, just south of the diner. Well, whatever it is, lunch.
Yeah.
Lobster
yeah,
roll.
lunch,
Lots of room.
Yeah,
lobster roll, yeah.
It'll always be the diner to me.
with new striped awnings.
Do you guys see,
Oh, we're looking
renderings
at the
there?
orientation is different, yeah.
Let me see here.
So Montauk Highway is,
So you can
Is-
see,
Up
is-
there.
is- No,
Well, it's
lower part of
27
it.
and then
Hold on.
right behind
There you go.
yes,
So-
that's better, yeah.
Yeah. So this is Tesla, this is the diner, and this is where the building is going.
I
back
see.
there.
where's the rear access road at to?
That
That's
is
flying
right
clear.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's built all the way to Tesla.
That goes all the way to Tesla.
Yeah.
It goes all the way to Tesla. I gotta go out there and check to make sure it doesn't need to be upgraded or something. I think it's in pretty good shape, at least on the diner property. You see the elevations there, at least the concept elevations. That's, just a concept. This is a pre-submission, so the idea is that we're gonna have the pre-submission conference. You could ask questions, the public will come out, and then we'll prepare a report with all the issues. Carl, just right on, I don't wanna get too much into it, because that's what the purpose of the report is for, but, it's a big building, and it's very close to that, road in the back there. If you look at this site plan, just,
How many thousand square feet is it?
about 8,000.
8,000.
So you'll see here, and this is just the concept plan, but this is the building with all the parking, this is the access road to the back there. So that's pretty close,
Oh,
to the
gosh,
access road.
yes.
So that might be something that we gotta look at a little.
Could you show me again with the cursor, because I didn't see it?
Oh, yes, so this is the proposed building.
Yes.
And then this is the
This is the road.
existing
The
road
road
in the
is right
back, the
behind it.
cross access,
it.
so.
That comes out on
Isn't it
Flying
this-
Point.
Yes.
Yeah, so we gotta look at some design a little bit here, I think.
Yeah.
And the architecture looks decent.
That comes out on Flying Point, right?
Ultimately, yes, goes all the way through. This was a very well-planned, commercial, development, all things considered. The intersection is terrible over there, so I think we
It
did
is.
a lot of good.
Yeah.
Calling for a traffic circle.
Yeah. So this one I have written down, scheduling the pre-submission for
Exactly right.
August 24th.
Well, just a heads up, we've been looking to get charging stations on these commercial sites now. There's 4, 6 charging stations.
And any
Which are
other-
relatively easy to put in when you're putting your parking lot, everything runs underground. It can be at the edge, the periphery of, they don't have to be up against the building. It can be at the periphery of the lot, but we're looking to get those in.
Absolutely.
You'll see a general comment will come out of the pre-app report. We got one of them already.
Yeah.
Talks about the charging stations, but other green, sustainable elements that can be incorporated. Green infrastructure, like drainage swales or.
You've
Solar
got like a
panels.
white EPDM roof, but that could be good for solar.
Solar,
Yeah.
So we've been incorporating this to save site plan.
Sustainability
Yeah,
features.
we've got
Sustainability
a
We would
nice,
certainly
a
be
nice
open.
paragraph that explains it all.
I'm sure you do.
Are there like 4 offices here, Carl? Is this what attention for
How many offices?
4 medical
Well,
offices?
there's room for 20, I think the square footage allows for 27 different office uses, but how many?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
number of
we're
office
at the very
uses is one
preliminary
thing.
point,
So-
we have a,
Yeah.
So what'll happen out of this, Jackie, is I'll do the calculate, it's 8,000 square feet, so it's one, per 180 parking for office space, but medical office has 1 per 150, I
Mhm.
think.
That's
So
right.
there's a bigger parking threshold, so I'm gonna do an analysis, so we know what the parking, issue
Exactly.
Yeah.
is there.
So they may have to reduce the size
Yeah.
of the building.
Could,
but-
you know, my guess is that they came up with this number based on a health department flow, try to maximize based on health department, which is logical.
And the
Um,
big-
And zoning, and with zoning permits.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
This is
The big
HP.
city hospitals
HB.
are moving out here.
I
because
see
we're-
it.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we're here.
Right.
The aging population, right,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of medical office.
lots. This
uses
whole,
coming
In
this
that
whole
area
complex
already,
is.
yeah.
Sure. I actually had recommended to the applicant that the one that Gabe Ariola did in Hampton Bays came out pretty nice, actually, that white
The white one,
medical
Yes.
office
the key
building, came
color.
out really nice,
Yeah.
actually.
Yes.
You did.
So that's not a bad, concept there. So I would schedule this one for August 24th.
Motion?
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent. So August 27, public hearing.
Is
Oh,
it
24th or
24th, what'd you say?
24th, I think.
24th, I believe.
24th,
This is
You're
Okay,
really
yeah.
productive. I'm here for them.
Yeah.
20, still didn't hear.
24.
24, thank you.
13.
I'm out next one, and then you're out. Yeah.
Number 13 is 45 Fanning Avenue. This is the one that I'm taking over. We did a pre-application on this one. If you remember, this was the one that Jackie was working, I believe it was Jackie, where this issue of this right-of-way to the north here came into question.
Where
Who
are
owns
we,
it?
Anthony?
Oh,
Give
I'm
us a-
sorry.
13.
Number 13,
No, no, I
45
mean,
Fanning Avenue.
by Carl.
Which is in Hampton Bays.
Okay, Hampton Bays.
There's a two-lot subdivision application pending for this property. It's in the R20 zoning district. It's got an existing residence.
If I may interrupt, Board Member Catalinato has just returned from his vacation.
Brutal out there. huh?
What did I miss? Let's start from the beginning.
All right. Okay. So there's a two-lot subdivision. We did the pre-app report, which raised the issue about the right-of-way here to the north, because they're proposing to utilize it, so there were questions about rights and all the rest of it. In any case, they did an extension on the pre-application report. They submitted a request to extend and waive the policy so they could get another year out of the report, which I don't have an issue with. So basically, this would then extend or renew the pre-application report for this project until July 9th, 2024.
Okay. Any questions? Motion
Motion?
by Dennis,
Second.
second by Gloria, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor.
Abstain. Exciting.
One
Catch me going.
abstention and 1 absent.
Welcome
Yeah.
back.
And then the next one, which I believe is
Lillian Court.
Also, I'm taking that over. This was one, I believe it's a lot line modification, as a matter of fact. This is a property on Montauk Highway, and then there's 2 lots that come on Lillian Court. This is in Shinnecock Hill section, right off the Middle Pond Road there, and south of the highway. There's a lot line modification. I believe these 2 lots here are basically getting some of this property over here, a little bit.
Is
this
that part
piece-
of the subdivision? That-
No, it's not, that piece is not part of the subdivision. So that's basically it, is that doing a lot line change to get some more land. This is another one where they're probably dealing with the health department, because you have to get health department
Yeah.
approval for these things,
Right.
which is often proving to be a nightmare for the applicant, but we're also getting a lot of septic systems upgraded as a result of it, because they're
Right.
mandating that they do it before they get subdivision approval.
Okay,
So I'm just recommending that this project, this pre-application, also be extended and renewed, and this one will be good until June 24th, 2024.
till June 2024. Okay, motion
Motion.
by Gloria,
Second.
second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
And then, Jackie,
abstentions.
just real quick, they eventually will be signed, but N4 Lumber Holding.
Okay,
signature.
I'm taking a vote.
Oh, sorry about that.
So I had a motion by Gloria and a second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Now, what were you saying?
N4 Lumber Holding,
Is
just signature.
What item?
Which
Is
I
that
will-
an
I will
add-on?
It's an
sign.
add-on, that is,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So that's 20.
Then I'll be here this evening with our new planner, everyone who didn't meet, Chuck Briscoe. who's our
Hey,
new
Chuck.
planner here, by the way. So he'll be here this evening with me. And CVS is being adjourned,
It is? It's off the agenda?
right? It's being adjourned, someone tell me that?
Oh, was there a public notice?
Yeah, so they'll show up and they're gonna be told.
Someone listen.
Huh. Okay, so where are we? Rolling Hills, Janice,
Oh, Janice
do you
is here.
why don't you do your referral?
Do you wanna wait, or it's up to you?
Well, what do we have? We have Jeff. She's happy to wait. Jeff, let's finish you.
Yeah.
I got 2 long discussions though.
You do?
Yeah.
And Janice?
Oh, yeah, so I'll defer to after the.
Okay, so Jeff, come. Rolling Hills?
We'll do the first
No.
one, and then after that, Janice.
Where's the first one?
Pines East.
Oh, that's number 1? We're
Yeah.
doing Pines East. Okay, Jeff, that's you.
So this is an easement amendment at 34 Corbett Drive. See this? Myself and council, along with the applicant and property owner, have been discussing this project for quite some time now. He purchased this piece here, 34 Corbett Drive, it's lot 81, I believe,
We don't have
in
it.
Pines East subdivision in East Quad. The property itself is encumbered by slope and scenic easements. Those slope and scenic easements do reduce the building envelope for single-family dwelling on the property. The applicant would like to reconfigure the scenic and slope easement so that it, which I'll show you here.
We don't have anything in the packet.
Yeah,
We
so.
just have maps,
So this
yeah.
is essentially just for a discussion for
Okay.
now.
Yeah, okay.
Considering that this is kind of a newer action requested by the
We're doing
applicant or
it
for the planning board
Oh,
itself.
good.
Kind of wanted to
Thank you.
gather some information from the planning board in regards to how do you feel about the reconfiguration first and foremost, and then draw up a resolution with any recommendations afterwards. So no action will be taken for this. We'll discuss it, and then I'll come back with a resolution.
Okay, so is anything impacted by reconfiguring the easements?
So we thought that was the case. If you see here,
There's a recharge there, isn't there?
so that's a recharge basin at the corner property, a corner piece of the property right here, which fronts on Maggie and Corbett. So we, and you notice the,
I'm sorry, Jeff, could you just
Yes.
describe each of those?
Those are all
Shaded
easements.
areas.
They're all weird easements.
so yes, they're all the same, except for there's a 25-foot natural vegetation retention buffer, which does grant the applicant to gain access to the property.
The
his
gray,
driveway,
the gray
whatnot.
area is buildable.
Right.
The white around it is where all the easements are, and that's.
Thank you. That's,
This might be clear. You know
Is
what?
it
I
just-
have some.
Isn't it just the opposite?
I'll give you some
No.
maps here, actually. I have some copies for you.
So the shaded area is buildable.
Yeah.
Shaded
This
areas
is,
buildable,
this is the
the others are
before.
easements.
This
That
is
is
the
Yeah.
before. Show them the shaded area in the
this is
after.
the before, the second one.
Jeff,
Yes.
show them the shaded
That's
area in the
before.
after picture, because I think they'll understand
And
that.
this is how they want
Okay.
it, so he has at least a building on it. Otherwise, he doesn't have a building on it at all here.
Get you some more copies. So
Yeah, you can
this,
hold it up.
the shaded area is where he's allowed to build. The area that's essentially clear, but striped, is this, all the scenic and slope easements.
Well, he doesn't have a building lot.
So he doesn't.
In the first
essentially-
one.
Well, he could
Correct.
have a very strange house.
I'll say.
So we assume that the intent of the scenic and slope easement was to provide some level of protection for the
Recharge.
recharge basin. We did refer this to the town engineer. He thinks that there is no real impact on the recharge basin and that the scenic and slope easement can be reconfigured. So we did receive confirmation from and approval from the town engineer
You saw
for the
this one?
reconfiguration, which is this here,
Right.
which places the easements essentially to the border of the property. It opens up the middle of the property for development.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes
This
sense.
is, the easements themselves are not necessarily described to a degree in the covenants, which is why this is more like a map change or a map of amendment, so to speak. So this won't necessarily require refiling of covenants or whatnot, which is kind of what took a little bit of time for us to process the application itself. Also, the applicant received an HOA approval from the HOA of Pines East that they can and they can move forward with a change of this scenic and slope easement. So that's the crux of the request. Like I said, no action today, but
But
if
how do
there's
we,
any concerns or
how do we
questions.
protect
Yes.
the easement areas without a covenant?
It is already protected, and the amounts are all the same, and the only thing that the easements were specific to is that the homeowners, the original easement retained unto the grantor the ability to say no in the event there was a change requested. It was more, it wasn't really a town. These weren't like scenic open space easements in the
Oh.
sense of a
Correct.
town's open space thing. So, but they did require homeowner consent.
Approval.
So we went through that process, and Mr. Iavani got that consent from the homeowners association. And so now we can go ahead and approve the reconfiguration of the building envelope in conjunction with maintaining those easements.
Makes sense.
It took a while.
What is the height of the buildable area compared to
So I'll
the
zoom in.
lots next to it?
So this one has the contour lines at the height of 130 feet. And the lowest point is at 100 feet, which is within the recharge area. Now, in comparison to the neighboring properties, it varies. And if I go to the aerial, you'll notice that the slope and sink easements are almost all over
Oh,
the
Oh, wow.
subdivision. So it doesn't necessarily answer your question, but you kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with. Each
Well,
lot
did
is a
you
little different.
Bring up like a GIS that has topography or something?
Yeah.
To see like where it crosses over the
Let me
houses?
see, this,
Or do you see
it'll
that?
give you the contour lines, but it won't be that great.
Mr. Iavani's also here, so he could probably, I know he's like, he knows this very,
I could answer them with any questions.
yeah.
Why don't you
You
just
have to
come
come
up
up.
Yeah, come
and
up.
give us your
You
name?
can take a look too, Kate. I don't know if
record.
this helps you at all. It's pretty busy, but
You can sit here.
that's the variation.
I guess what I'm asking, which is probably easier for you to answer,
Yes.
and go ahead and just introduce yourself.
My name is Thomas Iavani. I'm an East Quogue resident, and I'm the owner of the property.
Welcome.
So is your house a lot higher than the other houses next to it? You know, will you
Yeah,
have like a
absolutely.
castle situation?
It will not be, and so part of the
Okay.
reason, there's many reasons to do this. One is obviously to consolidate the building envelope to make a contiguous easement throughout the site instead of the fractured easement. Also, the way the site is currently configured with the easements, you would likely place the house on top. That is a high point in the community. That's about 134 feet, probably one of the highest points in that community. So the house would be the highest
Stick out.
house in that community. So my goal is to put the house into the front slope where there's, you can see the blue line, and there's a current easement there right now. So it's to nestle the house into the slope. By doing so, the house to the property's east, right next to it, yeah, right there, that I would argue that's probably about 120 feet, because it sits on, you can see the geo map, it sits towards the, yeah, exactly, right there. So the high point of this 34 Corbett is about 134, 130 to 134. So the house next to it is sitting on about 125, I would say. The house that I'm proposing or currently working on would probably even be below that height because it'll be nestled into the slope. So,
Well, it gives you a better building envelope, certainly, to
Sure.
reconfigure the
yeah,
easements,
it's
yeah.
advantageous from a building perspective because it's straightforward. It allows me to minimize the impact on the site because I could do a singular driveway going in. And it allows me to not have the house on the top. I don't want the house on the top. I think it would really stand out. And
That looks like quite a large house.
that's
next door.
about 4,400 square feet right now.
Mhm.
That's what I'm working on. And I'm trying to keep it, I'm trying to distance the house as far away from the neighbors as possible, just for privacy's sake and just to maintain You see the access right now is on two sides, and the proposal is to completely shut off the access, and so that the recharge is contiguous to the easements all the way around the site and the easements adjoining the site on the other properties.
So you'd access off of Maggie?
I would access off of Maggie, correct?
That was one of the conditions of the approval from the HOA, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were
So we
fine.
might do a covenant for that, just so we have it on record there.
Okay,
It doesn't affect the ability of it to happen, it just records it.
no problem.
It looks, was it cleared?
No, the top is. Right now, if you go back to the previous, you go to the GIS, the top of it is cleared. Yeah, the top plateau is cleared. The balance of the site is still uncleared.
So it looks like somebody maybe before you was getting ready to
Yeah, the
build
prior
up there
owner,
and then
you know,
changed their mind?
They tried to
or-
make it attractive by mowing down the
Trees,
landscape.
It was pretty evident at the time of the subdivision too, so I think,
Yeah.
right after they received signature from the planning board, they kind of, created this little, buildable area, flat area, it looks like.
It was a little higher, it was about 134, that was a peak actually in this community, it's probably one of the second highest peaks in the community. And then someone came and flattened it out to make it presentable, I
As
assume,
a
to
building
buy.
spot.
Correct.
And
And clearing,
you're in the
moving
APOD?
an issue, or?
We're in, Aquifer Protection
No.
Overlay
Yeah.
District, yeah.
How's the runoff gonna affect your building envelope there?
I mean, I'm right next to a recharge, that recharge is lower than, that recharge descends down in the community, so it's basically a basin that captures water, so anything from my site will be captured in that basin. And there's currently 2 culverts that run from these streets into that recharge area.
So you'll have to kind of direct it around the house or something?
Yeah, I mean, I would direct it downslope, and so that it doesn't erode the site. I would direct it all downslope, and then have a culvert probably at the bottom of the site where the driveway entrance would be, and a culvert running it almost next to the culvert that runs to it from the 2 streets right now, so that there's no, runoff erosion going on.
I thought that a town engineer would require you to keep all your water on your site, not direct it to a recharge area.
I certainly can do that, and I have no problem doing that if that's,
Well, 3-inch rainfall, you're gonna have to keep, that's for sure. A 3-inch rainfall.
absolutely, I
Yeah.
can put it, there's no problem, I can keep it on site. Whatever the board wishes with that. I would think I could, have it appropriately directed to the recharge, but I'm fine
mean-
with that either way.
So you have it listed as CR 120 subdivision R60. Are those just for setbacks?
So it's split zone, so if you look at
Oh.
the actual subdivision map, there's a section, of the subdivision that's, 120, another section that's R60, so just for.
So does it
clarification
go
purposes.
through that lot?
No, it doesn't go through the lot
So
itself.
what is
Actually
that
just,
lot, the CR 120?
No, CR 120 was prior to the development, so there was a.
So it's R60.
Right, it's R60 and R40. So there's 114 lots, 75 of them are R40, and balance is R60.
So I don't think I would include the CR 120, that's confusing.
I'll remove that for you.
Well, I think it all makes sense to us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it's interesting because I have a situation in my neighborhood where there's topography changes that have really, impacted other homes, even
Homes.
though there's slopes and everything, but the house is not placed as you're saying. It's very much taller and infringing upon, so I wonder, and I emailed Janice and I had kind of a short discussion about it on email, but I wonder what your opinion is, Janice, of topography changes as part of zoning and where you see that going, and is this precedent setting, and how should we think about it?
Yeah, sure.
I would like that.
Janet,
Since
how
you're
are you?
here.
Since you live in this room.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
It's okay. I would just say that it is an issue, like in this case, you had come and said, was there a site plan? And I said, only in certain subdivisions do they do that, when there's known
Sure, yeah.
slopes. And then there's like covenants to come back and where the board works on orienting the house. We're seeing a lot more instances where people are abnormally raising grade, so you're you know, you were once everybody was flat and then somebody bought the lot and now you're up here and everybody's down here and now, and maxing out the lot setbacks, so it's sort of shocking and, I'm trying to get a handle on that. I think that's sort of the next zoning frontier, and after Kate brought it up, I kinda, you know, talked about it, with my quarterly, we have like quarterly meetings with code enforcement, and we all meet together, fire marshal and building, and brought this up, to say, you know, this is not the first time, people complain about this all the time, and also we think, you know, it has to do with like, you know, you want the high ceilings in your basement, so everything kinda just
Gets
creeps
higher
up
and
higher
higher.
and higher, but, you know, we've had even personal friends call me up and say, you know, everything was fine until this house like is looming over me now, and now I'm miserable, and so we're just, you know, in this case, he's trying
He's
to
lowering it.
situate everything to nestle in and be the way
Right,
it should be tucked in. Other people are just sort of doing.
So you're finding that they're altering the topography by
Yes, and I
putting.
mean, the whole town should probably raise its grade up, right, for coastal erosion reasons. So it's not the worst thing to wanna raise things up, but at the same time, it's
It's
kinda
not
problematic
equitable,
when
yeah.
one is looming over another, and that's where you get that
Inequity, yeah,
inequity.
visual
And
inequity,
then
yeah.
the way, and I talked about it with our chief, about how the pyramid law is written from average natural grade, and then, but what about
What
when
is-
you change the grade so significantly, now you're not taking it from
Natural
here, you're
grade.
taking it from new
Not a
grade.
natural grade, yeah.
And now you're breaking the pyramid because you're on a different
Exactly.
topo line,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
I, you know, I would
So,
just
I
say
mean,
that it's,
just
it's,
to not
it
pick
is an
on yours,
issue,
but
and
it's
I would like
important
to
that
look
we
at that more.
No, I don't
look
think
at the
all. I mean-
precedent
Not
of
in
it, I
your
think you're
case.
doing it correctly.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, you know, if anyone else would look at this, it's, oh my gosh, I could see, if you go up to the top and you put a ladder up 20 feet, I can see the ocean and I can see the bay, that's how high this point is. And that's wonderful from that perspective, but it's not contextual at all with what's going on in the community, and certainly not with the landscape.
And not what you want.
But,
And not what you want.
well, I'm-
Yeah.
And when
That's not
everybody's,
the way-
when you open up the woods and all the trees around you grow, you
Right,
no longer
so-
have the view, which
you know,
happened to me.
I mean, it's, you know, that happens to be a particularly beautiful community. It has, you know, it's aquifer protection overlay, it's, you know, it's part of the Pine Barrens overlay, and so there's a, you know, we're surrounded by beautiful preserve, and there's beautiful hills there, so I think the idea would be to try to keep the architecture and integrate the architecture and the
Right.
surrounding environment, so.
That's kinda all we really ever hope for, but,
Yeah, sure.
sometimes that doesn't always work out.
It's unique.
And
So
also-
can you just add those overlay districts?
Yep, I'll
You
add those
don't have
overlay districts.
APOD and Pine Barrens.
Right, and also in addition to the reconfiguration, we're not reducing the square footage in totality
Yeah.
No.
of what's existing, so we wanna make sure we
Right.
have point.
It's sort of an
All
equal
right.
status proposal, I'll call it, in that I'm gaining a consolidated building envelope, I'm actually losing 1,000 square feet of buildable space. My intent, and the revised building envelope, if it were to be completely clear, is still, you know, 40,000 square foot versus allowable 55,000 square feet, so I minimize that, and I'll be clearing less than that, so.
I'm actually happy that we have the flexibility to achieve something like this. You know, sometimes with code, we're like boxed in to a compromised idea, right?
Well-
This is a good idea when we have the ability to do it.
Interestingly enough, I believe that when this community was developed and sort of going through all the records and all the foils and all the maps that I collected, I believe the intent, having there's the tax map, the final plat this is on, has all the tables for these easements on the map. And so, and the grants are all broad grants. There's no meets and bounds on them or anything. So I do believe it was set up and designed because of the topography in this community to allow for that flexibility so that it would simply be an amendment to the map, an amendment to the table on the map.
Yeah, makes sense.
And the fact that you have the HOA support is
Yeah.
a critical
They've-
piece in this case, too, yeah.
Right. And as council said, we should incorporate that, maybe make that into a covenant. Okay, so let's vote on this.
No
Thoughtful.
action.
Oh, there's no action,
No
discussion. Well,
Correct. I'll
you've
bring
heard
back
what
the
we have to say.
resolution, and I'll include the covenant and the legal document associated with that as part of the recommendations. then
And the
we'll-
description, APOD and Pine Barrens. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
And then I can go next, since I'm sitting here.
Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
You're here.
can,
Just wait.
who are we waiting?
This is Wayne, but it's, he's filling in.
He's used to being here.
Elliston Lester completion, is
So
that?
that's a, yes, that's a two-lot subdivision, pre-application.
Yeah,
Address is 241 North Lane.
two,
Yep, 241 North
Elliston,
Lane.
it's 241 Norris Lane. Did you just say that?
Yes, 241 North Lane, yep. So yeah, this is in your backyard, right? Revamped it.
Is this by the cemetery?
Yes, right.
Yeah,
this is it.
okay.
So they're proposing a three-lot subdivision correction. Let's see.
3 lots.
Well,
So is it complete?
this is complete. It meets the standards for pre-application review. So at this point,
Hearing?
we'd set the public hearing for,
Did they submit a cluster?
no.
They need
To request a waiver?
They're requesting a waiver, yes.
Okay.
So public hearing August 24th, if it's still available.
There's no open space around there?
No open space, no.
Just the cemetery,
Just a second.
the open space of the
And they're
cemetery.
not gonna complain.
They're not gonna complain. August 24th, Kristen, is what we're at, okay? So, motion to deem this complete and schedule a public hearing for August 24th. Motion by Craig, second by
Second.
Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor. We're all here. I'm sorry, we have a full
One absent.
board.
No,
Oh, one
George.
absent.
Oh, no,
No,
George
George
is
is
gone,
missing.
sorry.
Yeah.
We've been,
6 in favor, 1 absent.
we've been growing through the meeting.
Yes, growing, expanding. So that's it for you, Jeff?
That, I have two more.
He has,
I have a site disturbance and a pre-application staff report.
Do you wanna go? Yeah, let
That's fine,
Janice
go
go,
ahead.
cause she's got a long way for home. All right,
First
so-
item I have is actually maintenance bond release, item number 19.
19 is,
Canal-
That's
Canal.
canal boathouses, canal property,
Oh,
yeah.
Hampton
Yeah.
boathouses.
Yeah.
That's the phase 1 landscaping and recommending release to the town board, and it's, the amount is $61,182.67.
$62.67.
Yeah, and so they'll be releasing that back, cause the
Okay.
plants are in good health and they're looking good over there.
good. All right, so motion
Motion.
by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed,
just,
abstain-
as a side note, saw the sidewalk from those boathouses that you were referring to go down to the
The whole
platform.
public
So
access
we
thing?
haven't gone down yet, but I said to my daughter the other day, oh, one of my colleagues told me you can go all the way down there, so we'll
Absolutely.
report back.
That was
Thanks for telling us about
10-year
that.
fight to
10-year
get
fight.
it,
Mhm.
and it's there,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay,
use it.
so I'm taking the vote,
In,
so it's
in
6 and.
September, after the traffic.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jackie.
Excuse me.
Just wait till I take the vote, that's right, it keeps my head straight. 6 in favor, 1 absent, okay? So we're going, so he left, Jeff, all right, Janice, continue.
So the next is the town board referral section.
Right,
And the first one is amendment to chapter 247, open space. Here's the code. Here we go. Just pass those around. That one's for you, Jackie, and I
Okay.
gave the rest to Dennis. So you'll notice, and you're the best to ask this about, you know that PRD is planned residential development, chapter 247, open space. But did you know that the state enables us to do a PRD on any zone? The way our code, it's PRD, residential.
Residential.
But no one restricts you in the enabling legislation to say, well, you know, there's this feature over here on a commercial property and let's see a cluster plan,
Right.
if they're coming in to subdivide. So no, recognizing this, it's this, you know, just a
you're gonna call it
simple.
PCD?
Yes.
Good.
And so that way you have,
PCD.
so it's, you know, a couple of underlined areas. Obviously, the cluster, let's say it's highway business, we say you can only cluster 2 buildings at most. You're not gonna cluster like 5 lots into some giant thing, but we still have to maintain our other standards of articulating buildings and making sure they're not obtrusive, et cetera. So the idea would be only up to 2 clustered buildings, you know, a
2?
max of 30,000, assuming it's.
What's the max, you have max square footage?
So on B,
15,000.
247-6, dimensional regulations,
Where is that, Janice, what page?
I'm sorry, page 4. So you see, it just adds like, you know, that you would either have to submit a standard plat and or site plan schematic if required, you know, so if you notice, or if someone says, look, I see, you know that I'm next to this
feature, resource, et cetera. And then in the dimensional requirements, you know, it's all talking about manor houses or clustering residential structures. Here, it's saying commercial buildings may be similarly clustered and aggregated, but in no case shall any one building exceed 30,000 square feet in a commercial zone.
The big issue here, Janice, is, and it's paragraph B, is that the size limitation on commercial structures was specifically designed to preclude big box
Right.
Walmart-style
Sure.
buildings.
15,000.
And
That's
now
why we capped it at 30, because big box Walmart is 60, 100.
Well, 30 is a lot. How does 30 now become, why did we cap it at 15? Why did the town board years ago cap it at 15, not 20 or 25 or
Right.
30?
They, you know, some may say it's an arbitrary number that was
Well,
selected. I mean, we were
Mr.
talking
Bennett
for
does,
years
but,
about doing fives, right, like small groups of
Well,
five.
I think
But
the intent was,
30,000, yeah,
But hold
30,000
on,
is
before you,
go
but
ahead.
that would be up to your scrutiny, where you would say, the benefit of preserving this is worth clustering, and the resulting building makes sense. If you don't want it that way, then you don't allow, you just go back to your standard plan. You don't have to approve it that way, but you, taking all things into consideration, if there's some kind of resource and they have the yield, you're moving away from that resource. Maybe you create a breezeway, a different, you know, we don't always know that it's gonna be 30,000 these days. You know, everything's getting bigger.
Yeah.
I think
But you
those
would have to
separation,
articulate it, and it says
I
that
think it would be
here.
helpful for those separations to be written into the code. I think we're gonna see more
Yeah.
of this being driven by the applicant saying, hey,
It's in
we
the
found a
code.
resource, look, we saw some wetlands there, let us cluster and get our 30,000 square foot building.
I mean, they're doing that now through the ZBA, but you're getting no environmental protection either. So at least in this case, you're
The
getting.
ZBA has to be addressed. I mean,
But that's, you know, a quasi judicial board, as you know. So the planning board, it says here, the planning board and ARB shall ensure that clustered commercial buildings are designed to be screened or otherwise articulated with facade breaks and appropriate materials to ensure that massing is contextually appropriate. If you're in a commercial zone, you know, you have to look at that and say, well, this building looks, you know, feels right, doesn't look good, you know, whatever it is that you're going to say. We can add more standards, but we don't really, you know, like, that's that same flexibility where you wanna be able to have a give and take, instead of us pre-mandate something where we don't know what the outcome's gonna look like.
Janice, how'd you come up with 30,000 square feet?
215s.
215s.
So is this a 30,000, a combination of two buildings? Max
Well,
30,000?
well, that's the math, but it doesn't have to be, you know, that was the math there, the
But
maximum,
that to
let's
me
say
is
in
the
HB.
intention of this, more
No.
than one building.
Say
you
I have
know,
a parcel that
like a
I can
campus.
subdivide,
Yeah.
and I can get, and this is my building. Here's my building and here's my parcel is the paper.
Right.
I can get one here and one here, and I'm gonna put a lot line down the middle and make it two parcels.
Right.
We're suggesting that you could also cluster those buildings, because it's not just random, just like you asked in that last one, is there adjacent open space? Is there a reason to cluster? They still have to meet all the standards here in 247, you can't just be like, I just wanna cluster it because I want a bigger building. You have to make findings as this board that this is appropriate, that there's something there to move away from. It just gives you a tool in your toolbox, it's not saying you have to use it.
Okay, but we're here at the effect of applications that come in. They see 30,000 square feet and they're gonna go for it. I mean, I have the same very reluctance that Dennis has.
So then that would be
We've
your
never had a
referral
30,000
recommendation.
square feet
I think,
building.
I think the way to solve this is to state clearly in the code that, A, the intent is not to diminish the goal of capping building sizes at 15,000 square feet. And to that extent, separation, you know, design elements can be incorporated into the clustering at the, you know, in conjunction with the site plan. So in other words, they're gonna get two 15,000 square foot buildings, and we can create the breezeways and the separation, so we don't have the 30,000
We
square
don't
foot.
have one building.
Right, well, you could potentially, and that's up
Well,
to
if
you
it's
to
not
really
written into
decide.
code,
We
they'll
have to have it
say-
in, we have to have it in the code, I think.
Yeah,
Well, you
And-
do have to walk into it with eyes wide open, but you can articulate a building and you can make it look a
It
certain
would be
way.
productive for the landowner, though, to know right from the
Right from the
get-go
get-go.
that they're not gonna get the 30,000
They're
square
not gonna
foot
get one
building.
building
They're
at
gonna get the
30,000.
two 15,000 square with separation, a breezeway, an LE.
But how do you know that's appropriate? Like, you're saying that because you're
I think-
thinking of an ideal here, and
What-
sometimes you could get a different style or something else
Then
that
the
may
town board
work
has to-
better,
then
and
they
you
have
have the
to-
discretion to modify.
Then the town board has to go back to the code and lift that 15,000 square foot cap if they
Yeah,
feel.
that's-
Or they can go to the
which
ZBA
we
and
would
get a
strenuously object.
variance. So
Right.
your 30,000, right? recommendation is do not allow, but that's like, so, but what if it doesn't work technically but that doesn't really They work can go for to the the ZBA, cluster right? code.
You
You're
can.
saying like you don't want the flexibility in the cluster code right now by saying this.
Well, the flexibility is taking the two buildings and putting them on the same area of the lot. It's clustering the two that were allowed, so like the lot coverage is the tool, right? On the one.
That's.
For example, in residential clustering, okay, we can create manor houses, but we can't stack 3 dwelling units to exceed the 32 square foot height limitation. We can combine them.
Actually, you could,
You can?
absolutely. You can modify anything for
Right,
residential.
but this can open up, this could be dangerous in
Yeah.
terms of the size of buildings, knowing what's going on out here.
So so you wanna say
To restate, the intent is not to
diminish
Put-
goal of capping building sizes at
15,000 square foot.
Right, that needs to be maintained.
And
And any
yeah.
single building at 30,000, the square feet, I don't think
Why don't
we
you
would
just say
support, right?
commercial buildings may be similarly clustered, period, not and aggregated. We don't want them to put together, we just want them to be clustered.
And you're right, they will go to the ZBA.
Yeah, and
And
they'll get a
we'll generate a
variance.
report telling the ZBA.
Yeah, but why go get a variance? I mean, it's up to you guys and it's up to the town board. Like, I hate to create a code where people then go get a variance, right?
Right, so
Like,
let's
that doesn't make any
look at
sense.
some examples. Suppose I
Okay.
wanna build a campus, and I want 3 buildings. I could do each of 10.
Right.
Nothing to exceed 30,000 is the max, at least in my head from this, okay? Or I could do 2 buildings, one at 12 and one at 18, so that together, they do not exceed 30,000 square feet.
But you're still assuming 2 buildings on one lot, and we're saying 2 buildings can become 1 building.
Yeah, but that's the
That's
danger.
where the
That's the
problem
danger,
Our
that's the
feeling is
problem.
30,000 square feet is
What-
way out of scale for
Right,
our
right.
Well,
rural-
do you know that?
It
I
could
mean,
be
you have
divided.
I think the
supermarkets
master
that are
plan is-
minimum 40. You don't, it can't, I think it's a blanket statement without really knowing all the facts. Well, you have a lot of buildings in highway business, et cetera, that are more than 15,000.
I
No,
know.
yes,
Right now,
because,
today.
because most of them are automotive, you know, the Mercedes building, et cetera.
Yeah.
But they come in, we need another 5,000 square feet. We will often say, we really don't support it, because it's 15,000 square foot limit in HB, go to the ZBA. The ZBA always gives it to them. So that we have 15,000 square feet, I think the largest automotive is now 28,000 square feet. So,
Right.
but it's almost 30, right? I just don't think that, given the land mass that we have and the infrastructure that we have, could support any number of these, and I see that these could come in, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm viscerally scared.
Viscerally.
With the 30,000 square feet.
Viscerally
Right,
scared. I wanna
right.
write that down.
Put that, we're viscerally scared.
Let's keep the
yeah.
emotions out of it.
Well,
Let's
yeah,
just say
I-
that the intent is not to diminish the goal of capping building sizes of 15,000, and this board recommends
Recommends.
That limitation be,
limiting building sizes even though they may be clustered on similar lots.
Well,
But it
that's
doesn't
not,
make any
that's too
sense.
vague, yeah, so that if buildings are clustered, they, there has to be
separation.
more than, no
It's the
one building can be
aggregated
30,000
language
square
in
feet.
that B that it says clustered and aggregated.
Right.
I think we wanna take out and aggregated, right? Like, we just
Yeah.
want them to be able to cluster their allowable development,
Yeah.
not to make it into one.
Right.
Square
They can
footage in one
cluster
building.
up to 30,000 square feet, however they wanna divide it. That's really what we're saying,
Yeah,
right?
but.
I know there's
Well,
a
you're
lot of
kinda saying
semantics here
something
at
over
play.
here needs to be protected, and so I'm pushing everything that I can have over here,
Right.
over here.
But not in one building.
But not in one building is what
Correct.
you're saying.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
so even though I may be getting 2 buildings on one lot, they must be still each
Yeah, you can,
15,000.
and there's,
Each 15.
there are a wide variety of ways you can
Yeah, you
create
could-
that separation.
you can slice it.
Walkways, bridges, pedestrian
Right.
bridges and.
Maintain separation.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look at the Watermill Center, you know, those little office buildings, there are like 3
No, that
buildings.
was my site plan, I know.
Yeah, so that's, I'm thinking of that.
Yeah, it's just a little
But
bit
that's
nicer.
HOHC, so that's not
Right, so
HB.
But HB, right.
But ultimately, isn't it, it will be up to our discretion on an individual basis to examine the file and say, you know, this is too heavy for this lot.
We get pushed though,
But, you know,
Craig. That's
we
the
get
problem, they go to the ZBA and they get it.
They
Our-
said
our-
30,000.
Our suggestion is to try and get that language into the code.
So that they don't go.
Because we get a lot of pushback
It
from the
becomes,
private
yeah,
sector.
I see.
The
Okay,
more sector-
so any other comments? In theory, like it, don't like it?
In theory, what was the reason for it? You know,
Because
the
there
legislative
are
intent.
ecological values,
Yeah.
archaeological, ecological, et cetera, in commercials. Like,
Think of-
the
think of
ecology of
Strawberry-
places
Strawberry
don't know
Fields.
what commercial
Mhm.
zoning even means. There's
Yeah.
just a, and you don't have that tool.
Yeah.
When you
You
say
can't say,
commercial,
move it over. If someone came in with a commercial subdivision, you don't have any ability to get a cluster plan, because you are enabled by the state, but our local code doesn't even
Right.
say so.
I think
okay,
it's a
so
good-
by commercial, do you mean, what do you mean by
Commercial
commercial?
zones,
Highway
like highway
business,
business, shopping
village
I
centers.
think we
business.
I should spell that out.
It does.
It does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay, I
But
didn't
you
read
could,
this.
I
yeah.
don't know if you, I wouldn't, I didn't put HOHC because the idea there was even
Smaller,
smaller.
Yeah.
So if
smaller.
you aggregated those, now
No,
you're
no, we don't wanna
totally
do that.
missing the mark there, so I left
So
those
it's really
out.
HB,
VB.
It doesn't even say VB because you're allowed
No,
to
because
raise,
VB
basically
is small.
VB has,
Oh, yeah,
you know,
small.
0 lot line
yeah,
anyway.
so it's really only HB.
HB and SCB, which
Yes.
isn't much.
I was just gonna say, what open space do we have?
What about the LI zones?
You'd be surprised.
Mm.
What?
The LI
No,
zones?
we did not say that, so you could recommend that
Why-
to the
why
board,
didn't- why
like, why
wasn't
not
that included?
include light industrial? Only because, I mean, they need, you know, it's always just like massive equipment and things going on in the LI, so it's hard to
A
cluster.
lot of those LI zones sit next to Core Pine Barrens area. It may be
Well,
too
they're
much.
subject to just clearing anyway.
Yeah, but
unless
you could
they're already
augment
cleared.
like, sometimes there's a big tract of open space, and you get these LI zones, I'm thinking on the Spionk Riverhead corridor, where, you know, where you do have some core tracts, and open space could augment those core tracts.
Sure, so consider LI zones.
LI zoning as
Would it
well.
hurt to put it in?
Yeah, it wouldn't
We
hurt.
don't have to accept.
Yeah.
No, this
Yeah.
is our referral.
This
to
is
the
just
our
a
referral to
referral
the-
on the
yeah.
code.
Right.
It gets referred to you whether or not, what you think of it.
So ultimately,
Okay.
we're okay with increasing
Yeah, why not?
or shifting the
Put
buildable,
it- give it to us anyway.
the buildable lot size, right? With, onto one parcel.
As long as
As
there
long
was
as
no one building at
One,
30,000
no one
per
building
square feet.
exceeds 15,000.
Right,
Has to be multiple buildings.
yeah, campus style.
Campus
with
style.
Connector and.
I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of space left for that, you know, we don't have those big areas that other, towns have. We don't have, I don't know that there's that much
There's a
commercial
lot
space.
of buildings that are like getting to the end of their useful life, and people may come in and
Yeah.
say, we wanna
Mhm.
re-subdivide this, or redo this, or
Redo
that, and
lot
then you
line.
don't
Yeah.
have that tool, or you don't need it. You know, you can use it, as you know, you can say standard plan or cluster plan. That's
Yeah.
wholly in your discretion.
It's a good tool, yeah.
So if you have it, it's better to have it and not
The
need
state-
it
the
than
state
to need
gives
it and
it
not
to us.
have it.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Janice,
it's a good
did
idea.
at the
Referral.
public hearing on June 13th, did members of the public have comments that might interest us?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who said, you know, had the same skepticism as you, and then there were, you know, not too much, other people. Not really,
No.
you know,
Nothing big mentioned. No attorneys had points of view on this or anything.
not that I remember, no.
So you hear our concerns.
I do, sure. I'll put it down. Intent is not to diminish the goal of capping building sizes of 15,000. This board recommends that buildings still maintain, that size with
15,000.
separations such as breezeways, campus, and consider the LI zones. Is that
Mhm.
good?
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you wanna vote on it now, or you want me to type it up for another time? We have only 30 days on the agency responses. They closed the hearing the other day, so
Yeah.
just so you know.
So are we comfortable with that? We
Yeah.
vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion to accept the
I'll move it.
referral by Dennis,
I'll second.
second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, then we
And then
have,
the referral for the,
moratorium?
for BES, for the moratorium. You know, several weeks ago, Christine, did you ever find that document?
I didn't.
We submitted a document, we voted on it, it was a resolution to the town board asking for a moratorium, this was 2 months or so ago. We had it all spelled out, all written.
We can transcribe, it
It's
just
gotta
has to be
in
written
min-
down.
it's
It was
minutes.
verbal.
So I wanted you to have that, because we probably want to amend that. And the issue on the table is, do we include, Canal Battery or not in the moratorium, so.
but more so than that, I think that looking at the special exception standards of 33070, I'm sorry, 330.
This isn't the moratorium.
162.21, this is the actual code that was adopted. And you may have your opinions on should the moratorium be 3 months or 6 months, or include or exclude, or however, you know, you
Right.
can tell me that.
Right.
But also, more importantly, do you have comments about the actual requirements for the special exception standards? So a lot of what we heard, I think we should address the elephant in the room, the first thing, which has been a problem for years, and that is the legal interpretation that deeming something complete requires you to do SECR before you can have a public hearing. And that's been our problem
For a
for
long
all
time.
this time. So, I mean, that's
Yeah, it's like putting the
really
cart
Before
before
we
the
get,
horse.
problem.
wait, Janice, before we get too far into this, I'm just trying to understand, we're doing a referral on the moratorium, not the substance of what we're
No,
gonna do.
'cause we
but on-
haven't gone
but
over
on
the
the
special
moratorium.
exception.
No,
But
but
wait a minute.
I,
Come on, son. But the moratorium, as I understand it, I'm not sure which, because there was discussion at the last town board meeting, which one is moving forward and which one is not. So I don't know whether or not you need this referral right now on the one that you were here for.
She's got 30 days,
probably
you left
not,
it over.
but if I can just get out what I have to say and you can think about it and marinate it and we can come back and
Well,
have one.
But let me just say that we already did this 2 months ago.
On the standards?
Not on the, we never looked at the standards, this was on the moratorium, we requested that the town board
We looked at the standards
issue a
4
moratorium.
years ago, but.
Yeah,
The purpose of the moratorium is to toll applications from being allowed to come in and be made under these provisions,
Right,
so
and
that we can
look
look
at
at
the
them.
code.
That is the code I just
Yeah.
handed out, and see what needs to be changed.
right, well, we can't give
So-
you that now, I mean.
No, I'm not
no.
asking for it now, but I am asking for you to look at these standards. And we can talk more, we can have a special thing like we sort of tried to set
Mhm.
up with our DEIS reviews and stuff
Mhm.
like that, to go over these standards, so that you can make meaningful comments on the actual review process, so that we're not caught out there again, right? So we had NYSERDA give us a draft model code that we worked back and forth with NYSERDA on it. Then we got people make application, you know, against that code, and then this whole thing has
Right.
gotten to where we
Right.
are today. So now the question then is, A, procedurally, we have some issues, which is not part of the moratorium referral, but generally, I wanna say that we all know is a problem, because you're having to do SECR
But it's not a problem,
before
it's
you
a
deem
situation
something
we'll handle.
complete and have a public hearing. So that is just one of those procedural issues that
But that's in
keeps coming
general,
back.
yeah.
The
But I
other
don't
thing
wanna
is-
confuse
Complete.
that with this, it's my
Yeah.
understanding that,
It's my understanding you're gonna want them to
We-
do a moratorium.
yeah, absolutely, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, I mean, we may have different opinions on that, I personally
Mm-hmm.
think it should be longer than shorter.
Yes.
And it should absolutely include the canal battery application.
Okay,
So
so do
that
you
it's
wanna do
clean.
just that this time around and do
That's-
this
that's
another
what
time?
our-
Because the more you have actual content specific, that's fine, moratorium, 6 months, a year.
But that's what Jay wants, he wants a
that's-
referral from the planning board on the moratorium.
Sure.
He
And
said that
then
again.
let's get to the actual heart of the matter, which is what's wrong with the code and what needs
Well,
to be
we can't,
changed.
we can't tell
We
you what's
can't
wrong
do
with
that
the
now.
code
Not
until
now,
we've
but you-
undertaken the study and talked to the experts and have the reports.
That's right.
And the seminars that we're going to have.
That's
in
the
course of
moratorium, that's the value
what
of the
we do.
moratorium.
Right,
So
and I-
what would you like to say about the moratorium itself, 3 or 6 or longer?
Well, I personally want 6, because I
Yes.
think 3 months is a joke.
Yes,
Yeah.
3 is completely inadequate.
Right.
I agree, 6 months.
6
Okay.
months, and that we want to include in it to capture the canal property.
Well, we don't have to mention canal property, we can say.
Honestly, I don't know what we're doing right now. I'm asking you, is the one that's open still here for a referral?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, is that going, do you need those comments? Is that the one that's moving forward?
yes. No?
They closed the hearing and asked for agency responses.
In
It's
30
all- And
days.
you're an agency that you can simply just say, yes, we recommend 6-month or longer moratorium, and leave it at that. We look forward to having all
Well,
this
Jay got
information.
all confused. He said something about that we have to have another public hearing for the canals.
Because there are other moratorium resolutions potentially that are being brought
Right.
forward, which is why I'm asking if we still need the resolution on this one from this board, or are we gonna have to weigh in again on another resolution that ultimately is heard?
You know, you can always just later say, our last one stands, we still recommend you do it for whatever you're saying right now. It's not much different, in
If
other
we
words.
need to reread what we
It's
said.
up to you, whatever you wanna do. This was already on the agenda before
Right.
the
but-
hearing the
but-
other day.
But I think you're hearing from us what it is that we would like.
Okay?
Counsel, I defer to you in terms of procedurally how we should do this.
I don't necessarily know that you need to do anything today. However, if you wanna just say generally that you support what you were saying, either 6 as
A
opposed to
6-month
3 for whatever
moratorium.
it is that ultimately gets whatever, and then you'll reserve the right to comment further when you are presented with one that is also going for public hearing, should a second one be sent for your referral.
Right, that's good.
I would-
Because he was very clear about that. I mean, Jay, he didn't really know how to proceed, except that the hearing that he had was just on the moratorium. Didn't have anything to do with, canal.
Well,
So
that
he
was
closed that
excluded
hearing.
initially, and then there's.
I think we said
and
enough about
There was a
it.
lot of testimony about including it, but they felt that it wasn't noticed, so that the applicant was aware that they were not excluded.
I see.
So it's more fair to
Yeah, you have the.
notice it so that they're
Right.
aware of it.
I think without naming specific projects, wouldn't it be better to just say all current and pending applications?
Yeah.
And that
That's
way,
good.
no one party can say, this whole thing is directed toward my client.
Counsel, is that good? All current and pending applications?
It's better.
Yeah, that way we're not naming specific applications.
Okay.
Separately, 6 months is like a long time, but a short time in the scheme of everything, right? And meeting every couple of weeks.
Typically, Kate,
So-
they extend them. 6
Which
months
is fine, yeah, but the
Yeah.
point is outside of that, I wouldn't recommend extending it to a longer period of time for this, but that, in the resolution, that there be some sort of like, at least a skeleton plan for what we intend to do during that time.
It is in the
and-
moratorium
Yeah.
resolution.
I
yeah.
think
Okay,
that-
sorry to
Fire
get to read the
safety,
whole thing.
Have you seen a copy
well,
of the
that's-
moratorium resolution?
Just-
I read
No,
it.
that's the actual
This is
code
the-
that
That's
I
not
was
it.
hoping you would take home and
Okay. We'll
look at the
take home and
special
look at it.
standards themselves, so that we can refine those. But the, go
I
ahead.
read the 3-month that was discussed the other night at the board meeting. I thought that the tasks, if you will, I think that's somewhat Kate's referring to, should be outlined. I mean, it said because of concerns about fire safety, health, and general welfare. But I think, and correct me here if I'm wrong, but when we discussed and recommended a 6-month moratorium, we identified, I think, the need to possibly be proactive in helping define and locate sites rather than taking them as they come in.
I don't think that we spelled that out when we sent a letter to the town board, which nobody can find, by the way, which is so
You
strange.
didn't, you didn't.
We did.
We didn't.
I know
It
we
was
discussed
just
It
a
was part of the
very-
discussion we had with, Janice and I had with the board when we went and spoke to them verbally.
Okay, and I also think finding qualified consultants to assist us in evaluating these applications. I mean, what are we gonna do
Well,
in
that's
6
what I was
months we
saying,
have
is
the
like, I've been
moratorium?
researching.
Right, but that is not, this is not what we're addressing here. This is that's a detailed thing that we could submit that document and our request
But I think we're.
at a later date, because we're gonna be
Okay.
talking with Christine shortly, so
Okay.
So what-
that's to come.
Our referral is to consider the language of the town board's resolution to adopt a moratorium, right?
Correct.
And so I think we're on the same page, Tom, at least,
Right.
that resolution should include language slightly more specifically about what will occur during that time. And if it does, then I'm sorry I didn't have a chance
No,
to
it doesn't.
review that
No.
That's
specific
fine, that's a good
language,
comment.
but that, we're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right, we can't do that now,
during
though.
this time.
Okay.
There's no way we can do that now, because we have to go over.
Just,
Right. Right.
just in my experience, I've been through a number of these moratoriums, this language and probably case law would, the language really regarding moratoriums, the legal language is that it's brief. And if you start going out
That's
further than
right.
6 months, there's a whole issue of takings, land use. So typically, 6 months is kind of like a template moratorium. The reality is, there's a study underway, there are consultants, various legislations being drafted. We're reaching the end of moratorium, the legislative body extends it another 3 months, in some cases another 6 months. I've seen that. So it's good to keep it short, keep it defined. 6 months is
Right.
well within the window of what this town has done on prior moratoriums.
Yeah,
And
and I
it
don't
is
think
to
anyone is
review the
suggesting
code.
that we recommend longer than 6 months,
Yeah.
just
Right.
that we
But the
define
reality
what
is it'll probably-
what will occur during
But
that.
we
We'll be
don't-
right in the middle of it when we're
Right.
coming to the 6-month window, and they'll extend it.
But we don't want to include what it is that we want to do in those 6 months, or what
Right.
we want the town board to do, because we have not discussed
Right.
it.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and we will,
Okay.
and if you want that
You
at
need an
a
RFP,
later
you need
date,
a
you know.
consultant, you need an
But just
outline.
generally, what we're saying is that we support a 6-month moratorium on
Good.
all current
And
and
pending
pending applications.
Okay.
And that would be
Pending in
period.
future.
That covers everything.
Yeah.
And reserve the right to comment on future legislation,
Yes,
obviously.
sure.
As
I'll always
mandated
refer
by
it every
law.
time.
Right, right.
And then Janice, refining the standards would go by way of work sessions with you?
I think that's probably
That's a good thing to do, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ideas already, talking to, public safety, I can share those with you, what they've said so far, and, talking to PSEG.
All right, so
you
we'll
know,
set up
so
a session,
We have
Janice.
some information
But
to
let's-
share as well.
Let's
All the
vote
parties
on
in?
this,
These are
resolution.
underlined, but they're adopted, so this is.
This is all adopted,
right.
what you're concerned about is
That was adopted in
the special
2021.
exception one, the over 600 kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Also,
Are they
you know,
looking at the whole code?
No, it's 162.21 is the
Is
special
all,
exception.
is,
The rest of it is just like in your, in your house batteries, that has nothing to do with this. Like the special exception is the only code relevant. You're not doing a moratorium on, just if someone's putting a battery in their
No.
basement.
but it's,
no,
but
no.
that one's done on megawatt hours, is it not? Kilowatt hours?
600 kilowatt hours.
600.
Which is what in megawatts in terms of
It's
the
a
system?
times 1,000. I mean, what are we talking about when we say those numbers though, right?
Right.
That's-
Electrons.
That's
They're-
why,
It's like saying like there's a million IU of in my probiotic of something. Like when you say like, oh my God, it's 10,000, whatever, remember that we're talking about electrons.
But I think
Right.
I need to better understand what those KWs and
Sure,
all
well,
mean.
kilo, 1,000, mega, 1,000 times that.
What would that
It
translate
seems
to
like
in
lot.
in a megawatt? What would be the equivalency of a megawatt?
another-
It's a 1,000, it's 1 megawatt per what?
Kilo, mega, so it's,
Watt
every time it
hours.
times it by 100.
So,
So it's 100 times.
But
when
what
we
do
say
megawatts
that,
transfer
we're-
to kilowatt
we're
hours?
Can I
100
take a vote
times.
on this, please? This
Back to high
referral?
school
When
for me.
when you say those numbers, I just wanna be clear that you're talking about electrons and being stored in a battery. Those megawatt numbers are electrons. They're-
Yes, but
like
what
atoms.
what does that mean in terms of size? Like, what does it do?
Yeah, I think that's where all that training stuff should
Yes.
really be helpful to talk about. What are we talking about when we talk about?
That's the whole point of a
Storage.
moratorium,
Yeah.
to look into,
Gives us a breathing
to
room.
have the time to look into, to study, make a blueprint, to make an intelligent piece of legislation. That's what it's for. So, I'm gonna call for,
Well, we need a
the
motion.
language.
Yeah,
A
it's-
motion,
yeah,
yeah.
Put a
support
motion.
this.
I'll
Motion by
move it.
Dennis, second by
Second.
Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, I will
Great.
get that back to them.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thanks,
much.
Janice.
Thanks, Janice.
How much more is on the agenda? 2 things, okay, let's go, because we have another
Yes, I'll-
session.
And pretty straightforward. So we'll go ahead and take care of that one for you, Wayne. So number 16? No, number 6 on the agenda, which is
Number
not off the agenda. Anthony had
You took it off?
stated
We're
it.
putting it back on?
So number 6, Mulvey Francis
Oh,
E.
yeah.
Jr., this is about the pre-application report. This is the project location is 7 Percy Avenue, West Hampton. This is to consider a 2-lot subdivision on a 57,000 square foot parcel, currently in the R40 zoning district. They are splitting the parcels exactly in half. Each lot will be comprised of 24,000 square feet. I'll bring up the map for you again. Let's see.
Is this yours, Wayne?
Yes,
Yeah.
my partner.
Mo-
We,
Robert.
so I'll go through the report quickly for your review. Okay, the lot is only located in New York State archaeological sensitive area as far as overlay district. The subject property is located in the surrounding area for the subject property is comprised of residentially developed parcels. It is just west of Beaver Dam Creek. As I mentioned already, the numbers are off on here. Lots 1 and 2 will be exactly 24,000 square feet, not 20, excuse me, then the project area is 54,000 square feet, the lots will be 27,000 square feet exactly. So I gotta make that adjustment.
Jeff,
Yes, ma'am?
I haven't seen the report.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't pass them out.
It was not in the packet.
Jump right through
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The lot size again, 54,000 square feet, 1.2 acres. Proposed lot 1, 27,000 square feet. Proposed lot 2 will be also 27,000 square feet. It is located in R40 zoning district, so both lots will be substandard. But the applicant did receive, as of January 19th, 2023, zoning board approval for lot area to accommodate the subdivision application for these 2 lots. The proposed lots subdivision application is a type 2 action. No further environmental review is necessary. We did hold public hearing on May 11th, 2023, with no public comments, and we closed with a 10-day written comment period, which we did not receive any comments from the public. Conformance with zoning, if you just refer to that section, in the past, particularly within the West Hampton area, 2-lot subdivisions do not necessarily need to go to the zoning board. For a substandard lot, the planning board does have the ability, provided that the applicant transfers development rights or pine barrens credits, and if the property is at least 1.5 times the minimum lot size for the zoning district, which in this case would be R40, and 60,000 would be required. However, they did not meet that requirement and obviously obtained ZBA approval. And as part of the approval, they did mention the need for transfer of development rights or pine barren credits as applicable. We did refer the application out to Fire Prevention, Trails Advisory, West Hampton Beach Fire District, and Engineering. The one mention from Fire Prevention, and Wayne wanted to talk about this as well, which is part of my recommendations, is the area is served by public service, water mains and fire hydrants, but the nearest fire hydrant is on the opposite side of Montauk Highway. They are recommending the installation of a fire hydrant on Percy Avenue. to prevent the closure of Montauk Highway due to an emergency. So I included that, but the applicants would like to see if that could be removed as part of the recommendations or concerns.
There's Percy Avenue on the other side of the highway?
So Percy
Yeah.
Avenue is, and I'll pull this up for you.
Because we had an application once, remember, they had to, they
Yeah,
wanted
that
them
was
to
on the
run the
north-
water line under the highway.
Under the North Highway, remember that?
So,
Pointing at the candy.
can you see the aerial?
The candy? Pass the candy down.
That's Montauk Highway.
There goes Montauk Highway. This is Percy Avenue, not to be confused with Percy Street, right next to it.
I'm sorry, point it out again?
Yes, this is Montauk right here.
Yeah?
This is Percy Avenue, and this
Yeah.
is Percy Street.
And the Suffolk County Water Department wants them to
So
run?
the fire prevention, actually, Division of Fire Prevention is recommending installation of a fire hydrant on Percy Avenue. Because there is, right now, the only fire hydrant is on Montauk Highway. And if they close Montauk Highway and if for an emergency, they like to have, at the very least, a fire hydrant on Percy Avenue.
But what,
So if you refer to my recommendation, I
why is
included
this
that.
burden supposed to be placed on this applicant?
Right.
What about, I'm
What
looking at all
about
these
the-
houses here, it's certainly a worthwhile goal, but what about this subdivision that it's triggering all of a sudden?
Can we let Wayne speak to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Wayne,
Sure, so you didn't get to the.
just give us your,
Wayne Bruin, O'Shea Marcinsick and Bruin on behalf of the applicant. If you go 2 advisory reports down, you have the West Hampton Beach Fire District giving you their advice, and they have no objection as submitted. The interesting thing here is if there's an emergency, they're shutting down Montauk Highway or whatever it is, so it all depends. But they want another fire hydrant, and the thing that everyone needs to know is the Suffolk County Water Authority is only gonna put in fire hydrants with a certain spacing. It's usually 1,000 feet apart, so if you're no further than 500 feet from the hydrant. And that's the NFPA code and
Right.
everything else that everybody follows. In this instance, the property, you know, the fire hydrant is right on the south side of the intersection across the street, Percy and Montauk Highway, as they indicate. The distance to this property from Montauk Highway is, what, 268 feet? And then the entire length, 360 feet of this property, so.
so that's less than the
You're
500?
talking about to put in a water main extension way beyond north of this to get a fire hydrant to meet the spacing requirements that the water authority will actually put in. So this is well beyond the scope of what the subdivision, and it's wishful thinking, but I don't think that this applicant should be burdened with that. They are expending public water to serve this property.
Your client is?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's only to the nature of the first lot,
To
you
the
know, the
lot.
lot, you know, where that, actually to the house.
So that's like 250 feet?
Well, no, it's like 500 feet.
Oh,
But
okay.
to do a fire hydrant, they're not gonna put a fire hydrant 500 feet from the other
From the
fire
other.
hydrant.
No.
So it would need to go another 500 feet or so before they put another hydrant. And you can see on the aerial, what, you know, if Jeff goes a little higher, you can see that that subdivision is kind of weird, where it goes and so on and so forth up there. It's an old file map.
Correct.
Well, I think
They're
it's.
existing
I-
dwellings,
I
so I
think
don't
it's-
think you would ever get anybody coming in and asking another subdivision to extend public water.
Well, that's their comment, I mean, it's not our comment.
Right, it's a comment,
It's
not
their
necessarily has to
comment.
be a recommendation. I can remove that. It's totally
Yeah.
fine.
So we would like you to strike that recommendation, and especially in light of the West Hampton Beach Fire District, who serves this area. They had no objections to the
Right.
proposal.
So we'll strike 3, right?
Yep, strike
Compliance
3.
with, yeah.
As far as recommendations concerned, we're recommending that they move forward to a final application for a 2-lot standard plan. Also compliance with the ZBA approval and transfer of development rights and/or Pine Barrens credits in accordance with town code. And obviously compliance with town engineer comments. The sole comment, the main comment was a 3-inch drainage for all future impervious surfaces. Final Suffolk County Health Department approval as well, to be submitted with the final application, and all requisite paperwork with the final application. Pretty straightforward, 2-lot subdivision, and they've already gotten the ZBA approval, so.
Well,
Wait.
ZBA, what is item number 2?
We're taking out number 3.
Number 3, with exception
Compliant
of
with
number
the
3.
division.
Yeah,
Fire.
my client is doing Pine Barren credit.
Got one
Bring
question.
five out.
Anything else, Wayne?
Under the park requirement, and it indicates the park requirement, there's one additional lot, but I would just note in your code that it's a flat fee. I believe it's the 2,500.
Correct.
So I would want, just.
I'll specify
Want it
that, yeah.
specified.
Specify that, that's all.
Yeah,
Other than that, as
Okay.
Jeff said.
any other comments from the
Motion to
board?
adopt the report.
Motion to adopt the report as amended by Dennis, second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks,
Alright,
Wayne.
and last one, which
The
is
last
item
one.
number, and just for the record,
18?
let's see.
18 is
Item number 18 is off the
Oh,
agenda.
that's sign point.
18 is off.
Is off?
Yeah, 18 is off,
No,
and we're actually, the last one is number 15, site disturbance,
Rolling Hills?
Rolling Hills.
Rolling Hill.
The subject property is located at 54 Valley Road in Sac Harbor, or Noyak, to be specific. The applicant is allotted 60% allowable clearing. They have cleared upwards of 87% and are required to restore 27% of natural vegetation. This aerial doesn't necessarily depict the current state of the property. Property itself, the wooded area to the rear is mostly disturbed, which is where they are also proposing to revegetate.
So they've cleared since that picture, or the picture
Yes,
just
they've
doesn't
cleared
show it?
since that picture in conjunction with a building permit to install, I believe, a garage on the property, along with fencing, and that's how this was actually discovered. The planting plan is consistent with the requirements that we usually require for restoration purposes. The ecology here is oak pine forest, which is consistent with the plants proposed on this planting plan as well. And as you can see here, most of the plantings will be outside of the main property area to the rear of the residence. So I'm proposing that we approve this plan as it is. This way they can go ahead and implement the planting plan. If there's any questions, concerns.
Looks good.
You're good with it?
Yes, yeah,
Okay. Any questions? Motion to adopt?
Yeah.
Motion by
Second.
Tom, second by
Second.
Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay. That is it.
You're done?
Done.
Okay, that, we're going into a closed session
Okay.
to have a discussion with council. And we'll adjourn this meeting and come back for the public hearing at 6 o'clock. So I need a vote for that.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Tom, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Break the whole
We
thing.
are adjourned.
I'm recording